I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Marty, if you would.
Mary Jo Rosanowski. Here. Mary Jo Radcliffe. Here. Tom Epps.
Here.
Jeanette Simonson.
Here.
Nick Helsted.
Here.
Iftikhar Memon.
Yes, Mom.
Brad Dobbs.
Here. And has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
I would like to file a motion to observe 1 minute silence. Lot of kids have died both sides in Middle East.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right. All those in favor of a moment of silence?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Let's take a brief moment of silence in recognition of the violence currently going on all over the world. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm going to move that we move items 7.1, 6.1, and 8.7. Let me double check my numbers. To be the next items we discuss because we have visitors here tonight.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so we'll roll right into 7.1, which is our student senate report.
If you would mind using the microphone, that helps the video camera to pick up your sound. Yep, is that on? Is anyone allergic to bees? There seems to be one buzzing around.
Just do one amplify your voice in the room, but it'll help the
Hello, I am Ava Gilberg. I am the 23-24 school year Student Senate President.
Hello, I'm Mackenzie Nelson, and I am this year's Vice President for Student Senate.
We officially had our first full Senate meeting on October 10th, 2023, and we elected our officers. Of course, you know me, Mackenzie. We also have our Secretary, Connor Carlson, and our Communications Director, Andrea Cogswell. So we have 4 permanent standing committees on our Student Senate, which we have not voted on committee chairs yet. We do intend on first inducting a committee chair to our Constitution Committee. That way we can adjust our Senate Constitution as we have found many contradictions within it that we would like to fix. Then at our October 10th full Senate meeting, our new business that was brought up by the students or our senators, a lot of senators wish that we had our mixed advising back, so like mixed grade level, as it kind of helps with the essential need for people to learn how to network with others that they are not initially comfortable with. Then possibly bringing back senior privilege, which is seniors being able to skip advising if they are passing or have parent or teacher permission or approval. Another thing brought up was extending lunch or bringing back some form of lunch and learn. I have talked to a couple of teachers and they were not in favor of entirely bringing back lunch and learn, but maybe some form of extending lunch for students. That way we have more time to eat and socialize and hang out, as with what we have now, can't exactly like talk and eat. We also have ideas for fundraising and possibly with the money that we get from that, sponsoring events with the school district. With that, adding a treasurer position to our officer or executive board for our Senate, which they would work on fundraisers, spending, and sponsoring events. Then we also intend on using a adjusted parliamentary procedure for our Senate meetings and committee meetings and executive meetings. That way we can kind of get the ball rolling and teach our senators about like parliamentary procedure and how everything works. Yeah, that covers it.
What is the schedule of your meetings?
We have not quite figured that out yet, as club meetings are kind of on like a once a month basis, which we already had, but we need to schedule with other clubs, because with students being in more clubs like than once, we are trying to like work with clubs. That way we could possibly have club representatives come in, people from other clubs come in and talk to us and bring up issues and possibly work on events with us. And we just can't do that if we have meetings on the same day. So we're trying to work it out and possibly get a calendar out by the end of this month, hopefully. That way we can kind of get everything rolling.
Okay, I'd be interested to go to a meeting if it works out with my schedule.
Could you explain what your mixed advising is compared to what you have now?
So right now what we have for advising is grade levels are with their own grade levels. So 9th graders are in the same advising with 9th graders, 11th graders with 11th graders. What we used to have my freshman year, Mackenzie's sophomore year, and maybe before that?
Yeah, freshman, sophomore.
Yeah, so we had a mixed advising where 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders were all in this like mixed into advisings, and I found that it really helped me find new friends, new people to hang out with, definitely like mentors within the high school. And with the like single grade advisings we have right now, I don't think that any of our incoming freshmen or younger students can actually have that.
Thanks.
Could you explain to the board how many senators there are and how they are selected?
So senators are selected one per advising. I believe we have around 20, 30 some. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's one per advising. They are voted on or nominated by their advisor, and then they come in once a month for our meetings, and then they talk with their advising about what happened at the meetings. If they want to talk to their advising about, is there anything that you want me to bring up at the meeting? They can most definitely do that. It is kind of what keeps us running as a Senate. So it's a process of kind of nomination and election, but it really depends on if someone wants to run or if someone is nominated.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks so much for coming, ladies. We appreciate it. You want to just click that in that stand and you can leave it turned on. Awesome, thank you.
All right. Next, we are moving to item 6.1. We are focused on purpose. We're going to hear from the K-5 math group.
That's us.
So for those of you new to the board, you're going to be hearing from our 4K through 5th grade teachers, and they're going to go through their guarantees and the important things that's going on in their department and their goals. So we'll start off with 4K, and so we'll be going through this month. We'll talk about 4K through 5th, then we'll go into middle school and then to high school. So we'll be seeing a math progression starting with 4K all the way through 12th through the end. So
We're so appreciative that so many of you guys came to
Yes,
speak
thank
your own
you so
piece.
much.
Thank you. Fantastic.
you can tell they're elementary teachers because they're lined up.
Okay, thanks. I'm Melanie Cassidy. I teach 4K at Forest Street, and I've been teaching for 18 years at the district. So, in math, we have these set guarantees that we work on all year long. So, root counting to 20, so counting 1 through 20 without touching objects, just out loud. One-to-one correspondence to 20 objects, so counting while they touch objects or move objects. Identifying numerals to 10. Identifying a circle, square, shape, all 8 basics. So that's what we work on all year. And then,
I am Mary Wilson. I'm a kindergarten teacher.
Carrie Hiltz, kindergarten teacher.
So for kindergarten, we actually just started a new math program. We started Bridges. We piloted it the year before, and now we have just started it, and we are absolutely loving it right now. Our kids are loving it. There's multiple times throughout the day that our kids are working with numbers, or talking about numbers, or engaged with numbers, and they are absolutely loving it. Anything you want to add?
It's a lot more hands-on instead of just paper pencil, and they get the opportunity to talk much more about math instead of just working on it individually.
And it really helps with our guarantees that you can see up there. We work on daily skills that the kids are playing games and practicing writing numbers and counting numbers. We're doing a game that they're comparing greater than, less than, so lots of wonderful math talk. There are some pictures if you want to go a little further.
My name's Stephanie Shepard. I teach first grade, and this is my 3rd year here. So as a team, first grade has adopted Number Corner this year, which is a part of Bridges Math, but we are merging it with Math Expressions, which we've been doing for a while. And so explaining what Number Corner, it's a bulletin board display center of learning activities. Each day there is a starting point on a calendar for discussing problem solving and short written assignments. It's organized by months of the school year, so it goes September through May. And then each month includes 5 workouts, and the 5 are calendar grid, calendar collector days in the school, computation fluency, number path, and it's designed for lots of student interaction, discovery, and learning by reviewing a wide variety of concepts and skills.
So there's a little glimpse of our math. You can see the kids engaged in the workplaces that they get to do. So we teach the lesson, and then they get to go off and do more hands-on learning with the skills they've been taught.
I'm Lori Spouty. I am a second grade teacher, but I've been with the district, I think this is my 11th year, and a few before then too. We focus on adding and subtracting within 20, representing and solving problems that involve addition, subtraction, understanding place value, because when we are adding and subtracting within 20, we are using the tens and the hundreds. Well, we get to the hundreds also, but the tens and the ones place value, and it gets a little confusing when children are writing their numbers on a piece of paper by themselves, and so we work really hard on helping our students to understand that. And yes, so that's everything. We are doing the Houghton Mifflin, and we have a fluency box. We received this year a plethora of math manipulatives that the students absolutely love, and it helps make our math teaching throughout the day a lot easier. So thank you for that.
Hello, I'm Allison Berger. This is my 29th year at BRF and my 7th year at Red Creek in 3rd grade. So most of our work at 3rd grade is done in adding and subtracting at the beginning of the year within 1,000. And then we move on to multiplication and division. And I kind of thought back to what my first year back at Red Creek. I finally asked, do we ever teach anything besides multiplication and division? Because we spend a long time doing that. But solving word problems with it, multiplying fluently within 100. We also use the multiplication in when we're talking about fact families in area. And then later in the year, we do some fraction work, basically just that they can identify a unit fraction. We do some other teaching, but that's our only guarantee in that. And then, of course, we have telling time to the nearest minute.
I'm Kaden Daggett. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Red Creek, and this is my 6th year teaching. 4th grade guarantees that 4th grade students can add, subtract, multiply, and divide using both the standard algorithm and applying in real world problems. The place value guarantees set up kids for success with those other math operations. And towards the end of the year, students also focus on expanding their fraction knowledge.
Hi, I'm Joshua Pierce. Teach 5th grade. This is my 7th year with the district. 5th grade has a lot of guarantees. I'll just say that we kind of build off 4th grade. Still working on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, but we really focus a lot on fractions and decimals. So like the numbers between the numbers. And we spend a good part of the first half of the year working on those two concepts. We do a lot of relating decimals to money. Then we start to get into order of operations, like Tom does, finding points on a coordinate grid. We work on finding volumes of three-dimensional rectangular prisms and cubes. And then we kind of wrap it up with converting metric and American customary units of measurement.
Does the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade all use the same math program?
Yeah, we're doing expression still, and then we also have those fluency kits. The entire section group have them, and the kids are really finding them fun. A lot of hands-on stuff, a lot of games. It's kind of a way to teach fluency without just rote memorization.
I was wondering how you get your guarantees, because when I'm looking at the different guarantees, some grade levels have 10 and others have 5. How is that determined?
We tried to stick with like 5 or so, but when I think that the 5th grade is just kind of more wordy. Some of the guarantees are.
Well, I think 1st grade had just as many. So.
Yeah.
So to be honest, the upper grade levels, we look at the Wisconsin Forward, they do a heat map of the standards that are most frequently assessed. And then the teams looked at the heat map and the standards that are highlighted there and their priorities to make sure that there was direct alignment to the ones that are being prioritized for the assessment, as well as the ones that we are teaching. There also has been a process for 2nd grade to 3rd grade to look at 2nd grades, 4th grade to look at 3rd grades, right? So that we can follow some articulation across all grade levels as opposed to each grade level kind of making them up on their own. So try that vertical articulation piece as well. Are you going to add something else? Otherwise,
I was just going to add in that we're also looking at the standards that, based on the data and all the things that Shelley just said, that is going to have the most leverage for kids moving forward into the next grade level and across like other content areas.
If I could just ask the teachers a question, I just want to remind the board, last year we went through a curriculum adoption process or a review process with all of the elementary, looking at their math resources, and after a lot of hard work from a lot of staff members piloting a couple different programs, their end recommendation was the Bridges for kindergarten and all of the other grade levels staying with math expressions with the addition of many more hands-on manipulatives that have kind of scattered over the years, I guess, as well as the addition of these number corners. I'm curious how you are feeling about that decision without a new curriculum, but with that added of the fluency corner kinds of things and the manipulatives. Are you feeling better about expressions, feeling like we need to continue that conversation, or?
We have talked about how the curriculum process really helped us find what we thought we were missing in the expressions curriculum. So with the Graham Fletcher Fluency Kit, we were able to add a lot of number sense opportunities. The kids love it, it's hands-on, there's games and activities. When we were piloting another math program, Reveal, thank you, it showed us number sense and number routines that we can implement. So after we came to the conclusion of sticking with expressions, each grade level was able to beef up their slides and their daily lessons and incorporate the best of everything. So that was really a great opportunity to find what fits best for our students.
Awesome. What a nice way to say you did all that hard work and ended with the same curriculum, but very well said. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts from other grade levels? I'm just curious, because that's a lot of work to review other curriculum resources and pilot them, all that stuff, and then to land back in a very similar spot. Does everyone,
I have something to add.
Okay, can I
Does anyone, other grade levels want to add to that question?
With kindergarten and first grade, with kindergarten going from Bridges, and then first grade we did pilot it. But with where we were advancing into our math, we were just missing that little bit of number set. So that's where that number corners come in with that interactive, building that math community within our, classrooms, and then kind of going through into second and third with that math expressions. It was still that rigor that we needed and that math expressions provided, but yet having that hands-on interaction that we can still connect with kindergarten as well.
And then with 4K, we did also get in on Bridges. We haven't had a lot of time to explore it, but we have been implementing the books so far, and we've been adding some number corner activities and some games that we have already kind of planned out that we will use, but we're just starting on there. And it's made for a full day program, so we won't ever be able to do all of it, but we will use pieces of it.
Awesome.
And I think the work that we do with our PLC has gotten a little bit more strategic and data-driven and all of that we'll talk about in a second, but that's helped.
Awesome. Nick, you were going to say something.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to talk about my personal experience a little bit with math and stuff. I have an 8th grader and a 5th grader, and I know we talk a lot about kids being way behind and stuff, and both of my sons are years ahead in the above their grade level in math. So I mean, I don't know if it's the teachers or DNA or what, but something's working. So just wanted to let you know.
Nice, thank you.
On this slide, you can see what our big priorities are this year when it comes to math. We've kind of really focused in on number sense, fact fluency, our grade level guarantees, and tier 2 and 3 interventions.
Alright, what's our tier 1? This is when we plan instruction with our PLC groups, that's at grade level, to teach the lessons and math expressions, make data-driven decisions in each classroom so we can intervene with students that might need a little extra help, collect data from class observations, exit slips and unit tests, and make data-driven decisions about next steps for the grade level.
For tier 2, we use unit assessments to group students who did not meet proficiency, frequent formative assessments to monitor their progress, reteach the grade level guarantees based on the error analysis that we do, and regroup students as their needs change.
Okay, and so what do we do with the kids? Do you still want me to put the microphone? Or no? I got a lot of enough voice, don't I? Okay, so the tier 2 kids that are at or above grade level, what do we do for them? The first we have iReady, so it puts them in their individual path, and teachers can also assign assignments according to what they want to. And then the enrichment, I actually talked to Christy today because our target time enrichment kind of circles around modules, and I'm like, what exactly are those modules? Because I don't teach the enrichment. And I took a look at them, and they're pretty cool. So the math ones that they have, there was one on like a camping trip, and you had to like calculate your supplies, how much money it was gonna cost. You had to figure out the layout of your camping site, what is the area of it. They talked about graphing the amount of fish you had, elapsed time with activities. And they do, there's like 4 or 5 different, besides the ELA modules for enrichment. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Tier 3 would be students that are more significantly behind grade level. So we assess to find that area of greatest need. Progress monitoring every week with nationally normed assessments and assessments within the programs being used. Provide systematic instruction using approved tier 3 programs. So these would be in small groups up to 5 students in size. It could be throughout the school day. And these are very proven programs that can help them get caught up in whatever it is they might be struggling with or behind in. And then just instruction based on teacher observations and progress monitoring data. So we have time within whole group to pull some smaller groups based on what we see in the classroom.
Okay, our next steps, one of them is to strengthen our understanding of our math resources. So we decided to stick with expressions. So what can we do? Because we've been working out of expressions for a number of years. So what do we need to do? So we talked, we ordered the fact fluency kits, the manipulatives that Lori talked about, our daily routine and our slides, fixing those things up, using iReady. And then consistently use backward by design unit plans, start with a guarantee in mind. We just did this for our second unit in our PLC on Friday. We had a little calendar out in front of us, and then we looked at how much time we had and what we need to do to get to this point. Working in all of our lessons and assessments and exit tickets. And then what are we doing to close the achievement gap? A lot, but a couple things that I focused on. One of the things that we've been working on the last couple of years is that productive struggle, especially in math, supplemental instruction, the engagement of the kids with the hands-on and all of the math manipulatives and resources, and then the increased instructional time that we have built in. This year we have an extra 20-minute small group for math, and that has like done wonders because it comes after our prep, and so you can go through a couple things and then pull the kids that need it, and the kids that already got it can either do more practice or be enriched in iReady or something else.
And then on the slide there is a video to show you math in the classroom at high school.
I can't open it.
Sorry. I can get the link and email it out to everyone so you can view it tomorrow. Sorry about that.
If you go on the bottom, Jill, go towards the black square on the bottom and right click, it will pop up something on the bottom. At least I did on mine.
I would say it was more.
A couple of you have already seen it? Perfect. I can still send it out tomorrow, so. I guess that was the last, yes? Any questions for any of the teacher team? I really appreciate you guys making share your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. All right. Next, we have some more guests. We have a gentleman from, I'm gonna get this right, upper 90.
Sure.
Campus as well.
I could start with just a little bit of an introduction. You guys are welcome to head up. So as the board has continued to work forward in our facilities, we have noted several times that the swimming pool is our next greatest challenge and one that we really don't have any kind of a plan for currently. We have heard from several experts and Kent and his crew who do all of the maintenance that there are some of the significant components to the pool that are really could go at any point or could last a couple more years, we really don't know. And so we feel that it is time to do something. I felt like the board gave us, as we talked about facilities, you asked us to explore some possibilities of what may be potential solutions for the pool. Upper 90 is a group that we have worked with in the past on some of our energy efficiency projects, and so they'll talk a little bit about that. Jill and I engaged their help to take a look at our pool. The good news, they've been a part of this last referendum project, and so they're very, very familiar with our systems, so it was easier for them to do an initial estimate without having to dive in from scratch. So without further ado, we have Mario and Ben from Upper 90 who are gonna share some information with you.
Thank you, Shelley, for that introduction. Again, my name is Mario Melanzi with Upper 90, and this is Ben Turpning. I thought I would just start off tonight by just sharing a little bit, and Ben's got a couple of handouts, but I do see some familiar faces on the board, and that's great. But for those that don't know me or what we've done in the district in the past is about 5 years ago, we started an energy efficiency project at the district, and at that time, the district had just done a referendum, and I believe it was more focused on the safety and security at that time.
That was the Red Creek building as well.
The Red Creek building was part of that too? Okay.
Yep.
So at that time, we went forward with the project. So what Ben's handing out is just sort of a little case study that we had put together from that project. So certainly not here to review that, but again, just an idea of, you know, some of the work that we've done previously. Consisted of a lighting project, some envelope improvements, some fans and things like that. So a good performance overall from that project, and as Shelley said, we are also helping out on the referendum on the commissioning side of the HVAC upgrades that are happening throughout the district. So been in the district for a while, and as Shelley said, we started exploring the needs at the middle school pool. So in conjunction with that, and I'm going to go down the list of those projects, but I also wanted to just share that we pursued any additional energy savings that were out there. So we've got two main measures. One of them is more on the production side than being energy efficiency, but we'll talk a little bit about those too. Okay. So I'm just going to start at the top of the sheet that's in front of you, the 11 by 17 sheet, and I'm going to go one by one down this list, and my goal is to just more or less explain what the project is, the benefits, but by all means stop me if you have questions. I will answer them to the best of my knowledge, but I am not the engineer that designed it, and maybe Kent can also chime in on that as well. The first project there is called an on-site chemical generation installation. So what we're looking to do here is install a generator to start producing the pool chemicals on site. There is a significant cost to the water makeup that needs to be added to the pool to get the mixture correct. So in this measure, we're able to produce those chemicals on site. There's no need to buy them, and there's no need to add that significant amount of water. So that's where you see that savings coming from. We list it as energy there, but just note that there is some energy savings with it, but a good portion of that comes from the water side. This estimated, or it does note that, I just want to make sure everyone knew that that savings is on an annual basis. Okay, so this would be starting from a baseline, and then year by year, you know, those would be the savings that you could expect. The next line item there is to utilize the existing pool cover. Back in the summer, when we were looking through, you know, all the needs and the opportunities, came to our attention that the cover was not being as utilized as often. So we didn't attribute any cost to that. But we do highlight a estimated savings for that, and I think we talked to Kent, and it sounds like the pool cover usage is on a good track now. So we are more or less highlighting or earmarking some savings that you would expect to see on the utility side from that change. The next one there is called a smart pump control system. Basically what we're looking to do here is install some smart controls on the circulating pumps for the pool water itself. In addition to that, it comes with what's called a variable frequency drive, and it allows that pump to vary its output. Instead of being at on or off, it allows it to be, you know, somewhere in between based on the need at that time. These next couple of items are a little more on what I would consider the maintenance side. These were your highest priority items for the physical infrastructure of the pool. Expansion joint sealant replacements, butterfly valve replacements, surge tank access cover replacements. So again, those are more just physical in nature, you know, the pool physical infrastructure of itself. The next one there is a pool air handler replacement. This is the largest estimated budget for the project, and the reason for that is because this is a unit that's in a tough spot. It's going to be tough to get it out. It'll be tough to get something back into that space. Heavily corroded unit, and these units, as you'll see, I'm going to have a little bit of a reoccurring theme that they're just past their useful life. I mean, Kent and team have done a great job of keeping these pieces of equipment going. And as Shelley mentioned, it's sort of we don't want to wait till it breaks to start thinking about those things. And for whatever it's worth, the emergency nature or to go out to the market and get attention of contractors and good pricing, it's very tough to do in an emergency situation. So we're trying to get ahead of that and try to be preventative where you can design it ahead of time, and that's going to be much more cost effective. The next one there are the pool air handler. So, the boiler itself. So the water that serves that, the hot water that you need to serve that space from an air standpoint is provided separately from the rest of the boiler. And that's a strategic design decision, from the engineers who designed the building, where you are able to isolate that space independently. So you wouldn't want your pool area to be, you wouldn't want to need the main boiler plant to be also serving that space, just because the hours of operation are different, and the way you temper that space is going to be different. So it's very common that we see those spaces having their own heating source, to temper the air. So that piece of equipment is also aged, and then the actual boiler for the pool water is also being replaced here. So from a mechanical equipment that is controlling the pool, the only thing we aren't touching is the filtration piece. But we are, again, making our own chemicals on site, so that would extend the life of some of that equipment as well. That equipment just was not to be called a replacement. So I do feel like it is a big, a big influx of capital into that pool, but this should extend the life of your pool significantly. The next two items there are more what we're calling energy conservation measures, and there are two main ones there. The first one is called electric data submetering. And what we're looking to do here is, if anyone is familiar with the electrical utility side, what's happening in the marketplace is a continuous increase of the demand cost associated with power. So electricity is a regulated utility in Wisconsin, regulated by the Public Service Commission, and sometimes it's challenging to go, when the utilities propose rate increases, they see a lot of opposition. So one way that they're doing that, that the utilities are still able to increase those costs, is through the demand side of things. So if you're not familiar with demand, what it means is that at any given point in time, the electric utility has to ensure that they can provide the amount of power that all of their customers are using at any given time. So if Black River Falls High School, for example, turn on all of the electrical equipment at once, all the walk-in coolers, the chiller, all the lights, everything, that amount of power that building is using, the utility commits to providing that much power to the district, and they charge you for that, what's called demand. So you set this peak demand, and this gets billed to you throughout the entire year. So one thing this measure allows us to do is to see in real time what's happening at each of those circuits down to the circuit level. So we can make recommendations for Kent and his team to adjust those schedules. So for instance, you'd say, hey, at 11 o'clock when the kitchen washers are going, from 11 to 1, that might not be the best time to have this other thing also happening. So you'd work on adjusting those schedules to make that peak, that peak that I talked about hitting, less and less and less. So I would say, just for some simple math, maybe like 10 years ago, those demand charges that utility is charging any of their commercial customers is probably, I'm just gonna spitball here, maybe 10% of your total bill, whereas today in those shoulder months, it's creeping up to 40 into the 50% of your bill. So they're charging you a significant amount just to be able to deliver you that power, throughout the year. So that's really what this measure is doing. In addition, the ability to see what's happening on the electrical costs can offer up some opportunities for Jill on the business side to repurpose and reallocate some of the food service electrical
We actually talked a little bit about that last month.
Okay.
We talked about Data Wrangler, if you recall.
Yes.
It would allow us to perhaps recode funds from our more flexible Fund 10 into some of those other specific funds. So.
Yes, yep, you bet. And without that data and that continuous reporting, the DPI just wouldn't allow those expenses, kind of a thing. The last measure that we're gonna list here is a solar PV project proposed on the high school. And I think the real change here in the solar world, if you're familiar or paying attention out there, is as of January 1st of 2023, the Investment Reduction Act allowed for nonprofits and public entities to also receive a tax credit. So this tax credit has been available for private industry and residents for a number of years, and they've now made other entities eligible for that. And so the tax credit starts at 30%, and there are a number of other, I call them add-on or bonus credits that can take the project up to 50%, depending on where you source the materials from and where you are geographically. So I know there's been a lot of attention in the state over the last few years around the grants. There's been some significant grants proposed at the PSC level for energy efficiency projects, and they've been very competitive as they've allowed, opened up the eligible applicants. I see this as I hate to say rubber stamp, but this is a program that the IRS is still providing guidance on for how those applicants will actually receive the dollars. But this is a federal program that I'm excited to see public users finally getting a chance to get their hands on some of these grant funds, without there being this really competitive application process. So a normal project without that 30% tax credit, in our opinion, doesn't quite meet that threshold of something that would be within a tolerance level. I think we've got some more information here that we can go over around the solar piece. But before I do that, I guess I just would want to stop and see if I can field any questions around any of the actual projects themselves. You bet.
So you have 100,973 for estimated utility rebate and tax credits for the solar panels? Yep. Is that a one-time or?
That is a one-time. Yes, all of the items in that estimated utility rebates and tax credit is all a one-time.
What is the weight per square foot of the solar panels? For roof loading?
Weight per square foot. From a structural standpoint, we do that analysis before we put that up there to make sure that there would be any structural issues with it.
I think it's actually less than that, but probably around there.
Okay.
Right. Just ask our engineer.
Yeah.
Clarify for you.
But from putting it on the roof, of course, there's different options. You can put them on the ground, but we try to make it as least invasive as possible. Pick roof areas that are flat, roof areas that have been previously replaced. Make sure to follow all the roof warranty guidelines for existing roofs that are there. There are a number of different things. You want to try to find roof sections that are closest to where your mains are coming in, things like that. So some of that analysis would have yet to be done. You'd start with a interconnection application with the local utility who would make sure that your system can receive that power.
On-site chemical generation, what does that work? Interesting.
I'm definitely not going to be able to speak to that.
No, and I mean, it'd probably be best for our engineer to, but we can send you some more information on that individually, like a separate pamphlet just to talk to that, because we're not going to be able to do justice for it. The idea is it uses salt in order to get the proper chemicals to the pool. That's the overarching idea behind it.
There's often, every so few years, we'll see newer technologies coming into that market space. So what I can speak to is that we've put this measure through the ringer, so to speak, and make sure that it isn't just a fly-by-night type of solution. So this is in a number of pools, and we're confident that this will produce what it's
On the pump control system, so you're using that VFD. If the chemistry is off, you're turning up your GPMs, and then when the chemistry is on, you're just throttling that down to like a circulate mode. Is that?
Yeah, just to use less power. I mean, otherwise it's just on the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like currently, our system runs 24/7.
Just a wide open.
365 unless the lightning strikes.
Okay. And then on the boilers, thinking about electric and gas, I'm assuming we're burning gas for our boilers. Is there any opportunity to use like off-peak with an electric boiler in an off-peak scenario to heat any water, or like in a dual fuel type of system?
We would have to ask our engineer Darren on that if there's benefit to it. I would assume if there was, he would, I guess, make a recommendation in that regard.
And I realize these are huge boilers, but
Yep, right.
I know there's some dual fuel systems out there. I don't know to this size.
Good questions, I'll appreciate that. And we can certainly come back to it if you think of one or whatnot, but I thought it would be worthwhile to just spend a minute or two on this solar feasibility proposal. There are just some tidbits of information in here that I think are valuable for board members to know. So if you would just grab that packet, I'm just going to turn to the backside of the front page where there's a summary there. And what I wanted to note on this page is just the percentage of your electrical offset. So if you were to install a solar system of this size in that location, it's just about 22% of your annual electric load. So you could think, if you wanted to cover 100% of it, it's about 4 to 5 times the size, so to speak. So one other thing that we like to note here is net metering is gone. And what that means would be is like if you were overproducing, you could sell your power back to the grid, so to speak. So when we design these systems for schools, we make sure to stay under their monthly production so that we're not giving anything back. So all the power you're generating on site is being used in your building, so to speak, right? I mean, I'll go to the grid, but it's not. You're not sending any energy beyond what you're using.
Like in the summer when it's not being used much,
it's still under.
Mm-hmm. Why would you want to generate, if you could generate more and make money off of stuff?
So they used to have that option available, but the rate in which they would give you for the energy you're producing back was so significantly less.
Like you buy it at 10 cents and then you can sell it back at 2 cents.
Sure.
In blended terms,
right?
Yeah.
That's only 25 to 30% of the cost.
For 20 cents on the dollar or something.
My knowledge, and I may be wrong, so I believe they've gotten away from that, the terms in that metering. And some utilities are still hanging on to it. So the next page there that I think I wanted to just touch on is we just showed a cash flow, just a little bit of a cash flow diagram for the solar piece, just so you could see over the term. Solar system is expected to last for 25 years. So in my mind, I sort of like this idea if it has a 12-year payback, so for the life of it, you're paying for it for half, and then for the other half, it's paying you. I'm also showing this as a one-time payment. There are also obviously ongoing options just for cash flow purposes. And I'm also showing this after the credit would be received, just so it's noted. The projects need to be funded up front, and then the credits are given thereafter once the projects are complete. So this is a look at if you were to do the project, pay for it all at one time and receive the credit after that. Other things to note is I'm also noting for the electricity costs to go up, but with a 3% increase year over year. And then I also project the production from that solar project, oh thanks Jill, to go down. Keep going. There you go. So just in simple terms, the system isn't going to be producing as much energy in year 25 as it was on year 1. You know what I mean? The photocells are 25 years old, so to speak. So then I just show on a cumulative cash flow how that impacts year over year. So it seems to be a break-even point right at that 12-year mark, and then at year 25, you're doing pretty good. Again, this is to just, again, I really like the idea of taking advantage of a federal tax credit that's there. We're doing this for many schools right now. I think this is going to be a very, very popular tax credit when the guidance does become official.
So I have asked Jill, who's going to talk to you a little bit about potential financing options, but wanted to know if you had any other questions for Ben and Mario first, or Ken.
take a little while to absorb all this.
Right. We've been working on it for a little while, so.
But for other board members, we worked with these gentlemen before, and what their payback is as good as what they say or better on their estimation, so.
Would you like to talk about potential funding?
Yeah, so part of the plan would be to use those energy efficiency dollars and use that to pay back some borrowing that we would do. We're able to borrow $1 million under an exemption through the state without going to referendum. I don't know if you all are aware of that or not, but that is something the district can do. We've not done that before, but that's not saying that we can't do that, right? And so what would happen is we do that borrowing, whether it be a taxable kind of note with a local bank or the state trust fund loan or however we go about. So $1 million of that would be under that kind of a plan. The rest of it, we would look at our project budget because we're talking already into next budget year, right? We'd look at doing some grant writing locally to be able to help fund that. We have Fund 46, a little bit there in our funding. Possibly year-end funds like we did before when we did the energy efficiency project. We had earmarked year-end funds and in the end we didn't need them. But so there's a lot of different options that we could do. But the idea is when you borrow that money, you're saving energy. So you're using those energy savings, those maintenance costs, and that's what we did before on our lighting project, and then help to repay that payment that we would have on that loan, we'll call it, whatever kind of instrument it might be. To do some of the energy credits that Ben or Mario was talking about, we might have to do what's called a taxable note. The rate's a little bit higher, but when you do all the math and figure it out, the payback is better in the end. So we would work with Baird or somebody like that to help us out figuring out which is our best route to go.
And so tonight was all informational. We're not asking you to take any action. However, those capital maintenance plans do get locked in pretty early in the year, and because we just lived that, trying to get some of the unique equipment that we need for air handling units and all of that stuff with our project at 4th Street, we would sure like to decide sooner rather than later if we're going to move forward. So I'm just going to emphasize a point that Jill had made. So the pool was added on as a gift from the Lunda family when the middle school was first built. That was the Lunda Community Center at the time. Very, very, very generous gift, just like the Lunda Theater. Last year, the board agreed to do that significant upgrade to the mechanical side of the theater. And then when the grant cycle came around, the Lunda family very generously met us halfway. But they said to us very clearly they appreciated that the district had already made the commitment to do the work anyway, like we were taking care of the gift that they had given us. And I think that went a long way in them agreeing to meet us and to make that generous contribution. We've not spoken to them about the pool because we were uncertain where the board was at, and lots for you to consider. Our plan would be, once we decided whether we're doing the project or not, to go to the Lunda family, who again very generously donated in the first place, and ask if they would be willing to do any kind of partnership again. But I think it speaks volumes that we are willing to take care of the facility ourselves, and are you interested in helping? So I just wanted to explain that part a little bit more. So I wrote down the questions that I heard, and we can certainly get some answers for you for next month. We are hoping to be able to move forward with a recommendation next month. So I would just ask that if other questions come up in the meantime, that you please let us know so that if there's more information that we need prior to that, yeah.
I'll just throw one more question out real quick. Okay, so for was a 100K system for the solar? Was it solar? It's like after 25 years, is there an expected? What's the expected cost to dispose of the panels?
That's just the that's just the useful life of that. There are systems out there that are still going beyond that. It's not to say that at year 25 it will just stop producing.
Right. So I mean, someday it's gonna all right, this is junk, we need to replace it.
Yeah, my understanding, unless you have anything, Ben, would be there's a recycling or a cost to dispose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess I haven't seen what those would be for a system of this size, but In theory, you would, more or less add on to them until that system would, show evidence of failure or, non-production, that you would act.
I'm just saying, if you make 300,000, what's it gonna cost to upgrade it then?
We have some connections with some recycling companies, we could certainly investigate that number and figure out what that would cost.
Obviously, 25 years from now, nobody knows, but I mean.
Sure.
But
What are they
dollars
costing today? Yeah, so
Right.
to recycle that, it's not zero.
Yeah.
So
What is the warranty on the solar panels?
it is a 25-year warranty.
So 25 is up to 25, so
Correct.
any issues with, it is covered 100%?
Correct. Yeah. So there is another piece of equipment in there called an inverter, and that I want to say has a manufacturer's warranty of anywhere like from 10 to 15, but they do offer you the ability to purchase a warranty that's greater. That's usually their lifespan. So, oftentimes there need to be a replacement of that piece of equipment.
Any other questions from the board?
Timing will matter for this project as well, because obviously we have a high school swim team and we offer the swimming lessons in the summer, which we'd like to be able to continue to do that. Kent, were we talking about spring would be the best time for something like
Yeah,
this?
so we kind of printed out the pool usage over the course of the year, and when club swim is done, the early spring, that would be your opening before we usually do lifeguard training and then start swimming lessons right as summer starts. So we've got a 2 to 3 month window. We'd obviously shrink some other people's events up, but we looked at total hours in the pool too, and we're over 600 hours of pool usage by the community per year, so it's quite a busy place.
So do we have feedback then, questions, discussion? We don't need formal action tonight.
So the plan is to vote on next month, or?
Quiet bunch tonight.
Right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us be here.
Thank you.
All right. That is all the ones we have, our non-frequent flyer guests, I guess. Next is 5.1, gifts and grants. Some great news here.
Yeah, so, thanks guys. There's a couple of smaller ones. So the Jackson County Little League donated their end of season stock for some homecoming activities and fun. So that was valued at about $200. McDonald's Courtesy Corporation provided staff breakfast on Wednesday of homecoming week up at the high school. Sarah Halverson again received the Beef in the Classroom grant, so that's $300 to buy beef products for their use in the classroom. Did you want to talk about the last one? Or?
Yeah, so Jay Lobbs, and I don't know his graduation year, mid-90s I'm going to say, made a very generous donation through the...
I think Nicole knows because there's a...
Yeah,
94.
94, okay. Mid-90s. So I'll read his letter here briefly. Katie and I would like to make a donation supporting the school district's music department. We are working with the foundation and setting up a fund to immediately replace the district's pianos, while also setting aside funds for other department needs in the future. We are making this donation in recognition of the impact that Larry P. Hansen had on my high school experience. Mr. Hansen made a considerable effort to support my musical interests via the annual musical, choir, Dorian, variety shows, working sound and lights in the Lunda Center, and many others. The impact of my life has been lasting. I still play bass guitar with the band. I also have a deeper appreciation for the arts, which has been an asset in my business career. But most importantly, seeing the level of excellence that Mr. Hansen demanded is something that I try to do daily with my employees, and then I'm happy to discuss if necessary. So Jay was very appreciative of his time here at Black River Falls and was excited to be able to do this to help support our schools.
And so the gift is $42,000 to replace with some very big electric keyboards. And so the music staff is super excited at that generosity. So very appreciative.
And did you notice the name, how he goes back to his roots? He grew up on Spalding Ridge. That's why he named the company. And then I also want to mention that he's also been a very generous donor to the EEF in the past to support the school district.
What's the EEF?
Educational Enrichment Fund.
That I was aware.
I move to accept the gifts.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no one signed up for public comment tonight. TCO update. Mary Jo, do you want to?
I'll start with did you make the last meeting?
I did not.
Okay, I did not either, so I'll just highlight some of the things that I know that the TCO has been doing. The TCO had quite a large group that marched in the homecoming parade. That was very fun. We also had the spirit sales over homecoming and had a lot of participation with elementary students. It was a very popular activity. We did make some money with that. They have also given gift bags to the custodial staff in recognition of all the hard work they're doing. They delivered food baskets to the teachers, I believe this week. Today, to reinforce that we appreciate everything they do. They also paid for the Forest Street kids to go to Junie B. Jones. And we are opening that Tiger Pride store this Friday. And we have pictures of some of the things that are for sale. They're just wonderful things for using M&M Sports and Chippewa Valley to provide items that people can buy. It's only open for 2 weeks, so people need to get their orders in for Christmas. Wonderful backpacks, all sorts of things that are available.
So the flyers that I gave for you guys, if one of you would hold it up, that flyer they made. So this is the events and fundraising committee from the TCO, and there is a group of worker bees, oh my goodness. And so that will be going home with all students. The store is open on Friday, so we'll be sharing that in the community. Their purpose in the fundraising being around Tiger Pride stuff is they said that at the high school level, there's a lot of individual sports that you can support with apparel, but they felt that elementary students and people new to the community and adults that just want to share a little Tiger Pride sometimes have a hard time finding items. And so they put together this sale, and they will make some money off of the sales, but not a significant amount. It's much more about making the spirit sales, spirit stuff available. Do you have the Cheddar Up one? That's all the stuff from M&M Sports. So
it's really cool backpacks with the logo on, and I think the pricing is really reasonable. Great Christmas gifts.
Got some of those stadium chairs?
Yes, they did have one on there. I almost died when I saw the price of those right now, though. I bought mine
Yes.
years ago, and it was almost half
And
of
that's
that.
making hardly any money on
Yeah,
that chair.
those are almost
85.
cost.
That's almost
Really?
cost.
Mine are like gold then.
Yeah.
I kind of said that to Louise. I'm like, I have to play about it.
We could have bought it. Oh, bring it out. Look at it.
Bottles are good.
Oh, and my water bottle, right? These are the water bottles that they're selling, black or orange.
That's the one
Oh,
there,
those are
insulated water bottle.
They're really nice, really nice. Our new teachers get them. Yeah, they're wonderful.
Are they a 40 ounce or 32?
Don't
It
know.
says 20 on the website, but.
It says 20 ounce.
It feels really large. I don't know.
It looks large.
Here's a lot of insulation.
I'm uncertain. It doesn't say on the bottom. It keeps it a lovely
I love
temperature.
that backpack. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. So we're excited that this group, again, just trying to spread positivity.
Did anyone make the meeting on?
I did. I was there.
Is there anything else that?
A lot of that information, you must have talked to somebody about the boo baskets and stuff like that. There's a group that is interested in breaking off and doing, they thought of making like a monthly or an annual calendar that each month there would be some activities and stuff that they were trying to do. And they talked about some very simple that don't take a lot of time, effort, and energy, but would have a big impact, to more grand events. And so I would just say that there was about 20 people there, Mr. Jar and Ms. Penza, about 20 people there. And I would say just really motivated. Yeah. And finding ways for families to get involved. That's good.
Fun group, good group.
there's no more discussion on that one, we will move on to naming of athletic facilities. This came up in light of our, Athletic Hall of Fame. So, Tom, I think you.
Yeah, the Athletic Hall of Fame, one of the inaugural members, Warren Rosine. I received a letter from a former player and student at Black River Falls, and he was very much in favor of supporting Warren's legacy in naming the football field. As you may or may not know, we have the gymnasium at the high school named after Sam Young. We have the baseball field named after Don Halverson. And right now we just call it Tiger Stadium, I guess. And we could probably, just look at maybe naming the field, Warren Rosine Field. Listening to other communities' broadcasts of football games and things like that, a lot of the stadiums and fields are named after, I'm assuming, successful coaches in their communities and their schools. So I guess I don't want to put the cart before the horse and say, is this something that we want to pursue? Is this something we want to vote on? And then move forward from there, or move forward, get more information, and then come back and tell you what the process would be. I guess I would like to talk with our athletic director, Andy Ossegard, to see what the feasibility of doing that project. And I know, Nick, you talked about the scoreboard, and maybe it's time that we renovate that as well.
So you're kind of proposing that it still be Tiger Stadium, but then it'd be like Warren Rosine Field, correct?
Yeah, or I'm up for any options if you name the whole
So the
facility.
track is actually called the Hoffman Track because that was a significant donation to the finishing on that. There's a large rock with a plaque that denotes that inside. I don't know if you know where it is, right by the. Okay.
Right. Yep. So I guess it'd probably just be the field.
Football field. Okay.
I would be in favor of just the field. I would not want to rename the whole stadium.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm good with naming the field. So I guess if we want to do something formal on this, I guess we could direct Tom to investigate further with Andy Ossegard and.
Andy's going to ask me what the process is, just to be really clear,
Okay, sure.
and that's
What's the
fine.
process?
Yeah.
So honestly, we brought this to the board last year when we talked about the fact that Sam Young Gymnasium doesn't get visited very often because it's in the high school and most of our games are played at the Blenda Fieldhouse. And at that time, there wasn't a significant interest. We talked about making it Sam Young Gymnasium at the Fieldhouse, and it was agreed that it should stay at the high school because that is where Sam Young worked and coached. So I think it is just you guys deciding that you want to do this. There would have to be signage, I would assume, otherwise it's just in namesake only, which could lead to a conversation about a scoreboard update that could perhaps have the name of the field on it, if that were, as opposed to another freestanding sign somewhere in there. Perhaps it is part of a scoreboard fundraising project. I don't know.
That's how it is at the baseball field. It's Don Halverson Field by the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And of course, that could just be signage as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be replacing the whole scoreboard.
Yeah, one's not contingent on the other. It just might be fortuitous to talk about them both at the same time. Because if we're going to do a naming, I feel like we should put a sign somewhere. Right. And so we would pay for a sign unless there's going to be fundraising around a new scoreboard, then we could do one together that met both needs.
Right.
Yeah, that was all I
listed.
meant. But one does not have to, we could do the naming without the scoreboard. I just wonder if we could do both together.
Yeah, if we're doing a scoreboard, obviously we're gonna do, if we change the name, right, the Warren Rosine Field, the Hoffman Track, right, Tiger Stadium, something, we're getting deep into the weeds for something that hasn't been decided yet. But. So, if there's nothing else we need to do with that, then I guess I'm looking for a motion for or against that.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion.
I would second it.
So you're gonna approve the name or?
The field, the name of the field to Warren
Okay.
Rosini Field. So is that, I don't wanna put words in your mouth.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the motion and Mary Jo seconded.
I'm good with that.
Further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. All right, and we will get to discussion on the scoreboard in a little bit. Next, the Education Department at the Ho-Chunk Nation has proposed that we have our next meeting on November 20th at the Tribal Office Building, so.
November is Native American Heritage Awareness Month, and they have invited us, and they would like to expand it a little bit instead of just going out there for a board meeting. I explained to them they wanted some time for conversation, and I explained that our board meetings are quite formal, right? There's rules of order and all of that stuff, but perhaps we could meet, people could come earlier if they wanted to and have conversation. So they are going to invite their legislatures to come, as well as we're hoping to build an agenda that would have opportunities for some of our Ho-Chunk students to be highlighted, and hopefully their parents would come. So they are generously preparing a meal starting at 5 and would ask for a social hour from 5 to 6 with the board meeting starting at 6 p.m. in the Tribal Office Building. So I would like a motion, and we will make sure that all of our postings and communication have that date change immediately.
So move that we relocate our November 20th meeting to the tribal office.
I second.
All right, further discussion?
Any cost to the district?
Nope.
Further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I would just highlight one other little piece of that though. The live streaming might be a challenge. They don't have the same technology that we do here. And while we're talking about that, we can welcome Ben back as well, so our live streaming will be rolling. So I'm still uncertain about the live streaming. They said that their connectivity might be challenged. So if worst comes to worst, we would videotape it and we would upload the video for people to watch after. It just wouldn't be live. So we can always record it, we just may not be able to live stream. So I should have told you that before you voted. Is that a game changer for anyone?
No.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, that completes the 5 series. 6.1, we are already through that one. 6.2, employment recommendations.
None that need approval, just your information.
7.1 we completed. 7.2, student success report.
So our core agenda in October is sharing with the board what tools and resources exist at the secondary level for parents to be able to monitor their child's progress. And so this year is yet a little bit different again because of the full implementation of standards-based. And so these guys have put together some information. You'll hear from both middle school and high school.
Right. So as we move into the slides, and we are in full implementation of standards-based grading, what you'll see is that a lot of the same technology pieces are still in place. So on the next slide, you'll see that we're still using Canvas, we're still using Skyward, and the school website is primary tools for how we're communicating about grading. We recognize that we need to continue working with all of our parents to make sure that they have all the access that they need and education around how they can get that access. So for example, as a parent in the school district, I receive emails, right? So I signed up at some point in Skyward and Canvas, and every time my child's assignment is graded, I get an email from her teachers. So it's like, so there's a continual stream of communication to me, but that is still dependent on a parent's sign up. So we have to ensure that we are getting out there and using multiple communication streams or avenues in order to work with our families so that they can get that sign up completed. And then on the next slide, we're going to go into a little bit of what Canvas and Skyward look like. So we have two ways that we show, two systems where we show families about the progress their student is making in their classes.
The first site is called Canvas, and many of you have heard already a lot about it. But the purpose of Canvas, like it says up there, is to provide access to the class assignments and to communicate if assignments are completed or missing. So it's just access for families to see, here are the assignments that my child is doing in class. They can dig into the assignment and they can see what the parameters were, what they exactly needed to do in the class, what it looks like, what the expectations were. They can also see the assigned rubrics to it. But in there are no grades assigned to those assignments. It simply is a check mark that says if it's completed, and we'll show you that in a minute, or a different symbol if it's not completed and it says missing. So this is just communication. Is it done? Is it not done? And they can dig a little bit more into what that assignment is. So it looks, I know it's a little small, but it looks like this. If you see all of those blue titles, those are the assignments in that class. If a parent were to click on that blue, which we don't have for you right now, but if you were to click on the blue, they would go into the assignment and be able to see more details about each assignment. If you look over, it tells you kind of when that assignment was submitted or was supposed to be due. And the check mark to us indicates that that assignment was completed. So the student has completed that assignment. You'll note that on 2 of those assignments listed there, the student turned them in late. But they got them in, but it does indicate to us that that assignment was late and something that maybe that teacher has communicated with the student.
Can I ask clarification? One of the greatest complaints, did you want to try something?
I'm going to try something else.
She's going to try to figure something out, so I'll ask you a question. One of the greatest complaints that I hear from high school parents is that they don't know when that is accurate. Like their child will receive, they go in, log in, and they see late, and their kid says, nope, that just hasn't been updated, I've already got it in. How often do you expect teachers to have that up to date?
So, and we'll talk about that a little bit.
Sorry.
Skyward is updated every 4 weeks. This is when the teacher checks off the assignment. So it is at the minimum 4 weeks, but this is often updated quicker. The late will always stay there. So that late is going to stay there, indicating that it was turned in late. It's the check mark that they want to look for to say that yes, eventually it was completed.
Nice fix, Jeff.
And so you'll see a little bit more. Another of the 2 assignments were missing or late, but then additionally they can see if the student hasn't turned that in. So that red missing indicates to our families that that assignment has never been turned in, and you'll see the X instead of the check mark. And so that's a really good way for that parent to communicate with their child about, hey, why is this assignment missing, right? When can we get that in? What are you missing to make sure that you can go forward with that assignment and get that turned in to your teacher? So that's kind of a little bit more about what Canvas looks like.
But it could be 4 weeks before that missing becomes...
Those will be in, that'll be put in more frequently than that. But yes, Skyward grades are every 4 weeks that they must be in, but they can do that in a more frequent manner if that works for them. But Skyward grades are every 4 weeks. So Skyward, that is where we are going to provide the grade information. So what grade does your child have in that class? And so it looks a little bit like this. Remember, most of our classes in the high school and middle school have switched to the standards-based grading grade book. So it looks a little different than what maybe you are used to seeing. Additionally, in the high school, just to add a little bit of information, if a class is transcripted through Western Technical College or CBTC, they are not in a standards-based grade book. They are in a traditional grade book because we're working through still what Western or CBTC is doing. So that would look a little bit more traditional of a grade book for you guys. So if you look in the blue of this, those are the different events that the students or that the teacher has put in. I'm trying, I can't read it right now.
This page is the front page, so this is just the overall course grade. Sorry, and then now
Yes, thank you. I was like, I can't read. The first page is just those course grades, right? That you see. This is the standard-based grade book. So this will state their different standards that each course has, and then in the blue are the events or those assignments that go under it that then give you the 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 possibly score based off of the rubrics for that course. And then on the top, you'll see it converted to a grade as well, because since we're still a high school, we convert it back to that A, B, C, D, E, no E, F. So it'll look like this for parents, and this is where they can go in to just get that information about what is the grade my child is getting in each of those standards. Jill, if you go back to that last slide just super fast, I just want to point out the bottom, we have our citizenship grades or behavior grades, and for the student it was responsible and respectful, where the S is satisfactory and the O is often. And so one of our challenges with communicating with all of our families is making sure that they understand all the different levels that they can click into. So you can click into those events, right, and see more information. So it's not just the course grade at the beginning, there's more information as you dig in and just knowing where to click. So then on the next slide, this is just, we shared with you what the 4, 3, 2, 1 that you saw on the previous slide, the definitions for each. We have made a decision as a district that a 4 is about independently and consistently. Like that means I can teach you about this standard. I can tell you about it deeply. Where 3, you know, I'm approaching that proficiency. I can do that. I can demonstrate it. But they're still not super solid in that learning. And just going on down 2 to having some, and then limited understanding and no evidence. And we've talked a lot about how important it is that we really do have to see evidence in order to even to get to that 1 level. So we're using this information to help us have a lot of rigor in what we are doing with our assessments.
Citizenship grades are our middle school behavior grades. This is a rubric that we use often, sometimes rarely. We utilize responsible, respectful, sometimes safe, but we used engaged instead. And I don't need to read it to you, but you can understand how it all works in that rubric. Our behavior assessment is done by students first and then by teachers with them if they disagree. So if Nick fills out his behavior assessment rubric and the teacher agrees, great. If there's some discrepancies, either the teacher believes Nick's doing a better job or Nick's not doing quite as good of a job, then there'll be a conference to make sure the student and the teacher are on the same page. It's a good communication piece. I would also say that behavior and grades have been difficult. At the middle school this year, we have attempted to use Otis and Canvas, Otis and Skyward were not communicating. So I will just say that we are calling parents with academic or behavioral concerns until we get Otis and Skyward figured out, and Otis is just dead to us. So moving forward now.
Taking Otis off our bus. So one of our ongoing challenges, just a little bit about that because I don't know that the board knows much about Otis. One of our greatest challenges in the standards base is that the technology can't do what we're trying to make it do. There are 8,000 different ways of doing standards base and it will do some of the things, but we had that advisory committee that made a lot of decisions about how we wanted to put all those individual assignments together to make one composite grade, and none of the technology will do it exactly like we wanted to. And so our teachers, we thought Otis that came around this summer and the salesman had us convinced that it could do those things, and then we found out that not all salesmen are truthful, and Otis, Nicole's a little salty at Otis. Otis does not speak to Skyward, and Skyward is we call it our ASSIS, our student information system. That's where all parents go into, update their enrollment information. That's where they pay their lunch. That's where they see the report cards. That's where they see all of it. So every system we use has to talk to Skyward, and Otis and Skyward are not friends, so Otis is no longer Nicole's friend, is the moral of that story. So the middle school teachers started in Otis before we realized that it didn't talk to Skyward, and so that's unfortunate that teachers spent their very valuable time trying to learn a new technology tool, and in the end we said this horse is dead, we're getting off quickly, as opposed to waiting around and seeing if Otis and Skyward became friends. We just decided we were out before we had to pay Otis.
So what are we
If it would
going?
have worked, it would have been marvelous. So.
Had it worked!
If it would have worked.
Yes.
So what are we using now?
Back to Canvas.
Back to Canvas, okay.
And so that is what, so Otis, what you just saw, and then if I am incorrect, you guys please correct me. What we just saw is we looked in Canvas and we saw the assignments and whether they were completed or not, and then we switched to Skyward to see the grade. Otis was supposed to do both so that the parents only had to log in once and they could see the assignments done and the grade. Now they have to log into both places to see. Canvas to see if the work is done, and to, like Kim said, they can literally see the assignment, see the rubric, they can dig in as far as they want to in there. but the grade isn't going in Canvas, the grade goes in Skyward, so it is clunkier. Is that accurate, what we thought we had fixed, and then, just kidding, we don't, so. All right, maybe that was your next talk, and I just took it from you, Nate.
So I have the high school citizenship rubric. So similar to the middle school, our two indicators are responsible and respectful. And then underneath responsible, we have completes the work required and in a timely manner, and comes to class prepared. And so it's the same, it's often, sometimes, or rarely. We do the same process as the middle school, so our students self-assess where they believe they are every 4 weeks in each class, and then if there's a discrepancy with where the teacher would have them, we ask our teachers to conference with that student, and whether they're rating themselves too high or rating themselves too low, to find that middle ground. Our other indicator is respectful, so underneath that is participates in class discussions or activities, and shows respect for others' rights, feelings, and belongings. And once again, often, sometimes, and rarely.
So grading periods, we updated this year. We're sharing grades every 4 weeks. The middle school and the high school got together, sat down. Actually, Kim put this together for us, I'm not gonna lie. Thank you, Kim. Those are the dates that we have picked to report out for our parents. So it's on the calendar. Our staff members get reminders that these are the dates that stuff needs to go out to make sure parents are up to date. I'll also add the next slide is our student success conferences. October 12th, so we just had them last week. We have them January 18th, and that'll be at the D1 Center. And then in April, we'll have a virtual week of conferences where teachers will be signing up with parents so they can make phone calls, or they can do like a Zoom. We'll also invite parents in if they want to come in and meet face to face. So those are the 3 student success conferences that we'll have this year.
And just sharing some of the information that we are working on sharing with parents over time, ensuring that parents are getting in there and getting their account registered so that it comes into their email. That really is the easiest way to check in on how your student's doing, because it comes right to your inbox, right? And then it's a reminder to go look and go check. But that takes some steps and a lot of communication and talking with others, and for making some of those plans. We're in the middle of them now. And then just a hint, so as you're out in the community and talking to parents, and people ask you questions, the big idea is that we check Skyward for overall achievement on the standards, and you can see how your students doing overall, and how they're doing on specific guarantees or guaranteed skills. And then use Canvas to find out if your student is completing their practice work and they're doing the things that they need to get done. So there's some thinking, so if my student is failing or if my student's excelling, are they getting all their work done? Is that part of the problem? Or are they really testing low? So those are really the 2 main things that we can look at so we can support students in their achievement throughout the system. Do you have any questions for us?
I have one. You said it's very good information if the parents have an account. Do you have an idea of how many parents have taken the time to set up their accounts?
I can find out if there's a way to know that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm
curious. Yeah, that'd be good.
It sounded like not all parents are doing that. And my other question is, do we have any ways to help those people that are not making their accounts?
Right, so that's kind of like we're trying to identify, or what we're working on identifying as a plan, are all the different places where we have access to parents. Like we talked about doing some things at basketball games. We've been brainstorming lots of different places where we have access to families, parent nights, and then pushing some stuff out on our Facebook account, all the different things. And so identifying those different areas and moving forward with that. So we'll be able to bring that around when we're completing that plan and start some of those action steps.
Most of our parents have some Skyward access because starting over at Forest Street, that's where they log in to update their student each year. So most have some Skyward access. This is that next layer that would be good moving into the middle school, high school.
And if you hear families talking about how they don't have access to either of these things, all of our office administrative assistants are amazing at helping people get the access that they need. So they just need to contact our office and we will help them walk them through getting access to Skyward or access to Canvas. There's a pairing code code you need with Canvas, and we can walk them through all of that, as well as our tech steering committee is coming up with like a parent communication tool, like how we get all that information out and at what time. So we will be coming forward with some of those things in the future too.
Are these student success conferences for the middle school and high school or for all grades?
Those, the ones that you see are for middle school and high school. Elementary conferences are on a different schedule. October 26th is the first day of the elementary conferences, and then they do one in the spring, and I don't know that date yet.
And I know like last year they had the conference at the D1 Center. Was that successful or?
We identified that as successful based on the number of parents that came.
Correct. Yep. We had similar amounts of parents there as here, right? And it was a good opportunity to be out there and get different parents access to be able to come.
Just a couple questions. Did you have a lot of Ho-Chunk parents show up at the D1 Center? Compared to what you would?
I would say it was a good mixture of both, yeah.
Compared to what you would if you had it at the middle school?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a good mixture of both. I can't judge whether or not there was more or less at the middle school or at the D1. It seemed that they were much more busy at the D1 Center than we were at the middle school this year.
Oh,
So yeah, it was. They also offered food too, so that helped bring people in.
Yeah. And then another question, how about grandparents? Can we get access?
That's up to
That would be my, yeah, I figured that, yep.
No guardians would have to give you that. We don't extend that, no.
It was just a thought.
Yeah, yep. I told this story to the rest of the board another time. College orientation, right? And a parent stands up with all the incoming freshman parents and this parent says, how do I log in to see my students' grades? And the college dean said, you don't. They're adults now and they take care of it, right? So you have to trust your child to take care of your grandchildren.
Yes. Oh, no, I do. I just.
For sure. Yep, just curious.
Interest. Yeah.
Any other questions about parent communication around progress or assignments?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next is 7.3, our seclusion and restraint report. This is a state mandated report that we review every year.
And Karen, please joining us for this.
Hello. By October 1st, we have to report our seclusion and restraint data to the state. Actually, that says December 1st, but I had to submit a report in October, so there must have been an update since I put that in there. I apologize. But just a quick overview of what seclusion and physical restraint are for those of you who are newer to the board. Seclusion refers to these are processes that are used for emergencies when students are being a danger to themselves or others, and when the risk of doing nothing is greater than the risk of doing something, some sort of intervention. And so seclusion would be blocking a student into a space and preventing them from leaving that space. Physical restraint is using your hands or body to prevent movement of hands or feet on another student. In our district, our staff are trained just on preventing hands from movement, so striking. There are other things that we can do to block feet, but we do not hold a student's feet. These are interventions that are used for both regular ed students and special ed students. There's not a limit. It's really that presentation of risk that is the deciding factor. And so I have to, the report that I submit, I need to break it down by school and by the incident that occurred. And so in the last school year, 22-23, Forest Street had one incident that involved restraint only. Red Creek had 11, and the middle school had 1. So we had 13 total incidences of physical restraint. We had 8 incidences of seclusion, and those were all at Red Creek. And then we had 28 incidences at Red Creek that involved both seclusion and restraint. A lot of times students, if they are acting out and they need to be in a room where they can calm down, they don't often get there on their own, and so they need a physical escort to get there, and so that's where often that seclusion and restraint together becomes involved. And so there was 49 total incidences last school year, which is up just slightly from the year previous. And it was interesting to note this year that there was one incident at the middle school. It's a little more rare to use physical restraint at the middle school or the high school because we also, as the adults, need to consider our own personal safety, and middle schoolers and high schoolers tend to present a little bit more risk to us as the adults who might be physically intervening. So of those 49 incidences across the district, 14 students were involved. 11 of those 14 students had IEPs, so we're in special education, and 3 of them were students in regular education. You can see the breakdown versus male and female. And then I did a racial breakdown, and then just a further step from those 14 students. There was 1 student who had 11 incidences, 3 students who had 5, 3 students who had 4, 1 student had 3, and then 2 students had 2 incidences, and 4 students just had 1. This is never a preferred thing for staff to use. It's traumatic for both the student and the staff member involved. And so I'm going to just really reinforce and reiterate that this is an emergency only sort of intervention that we use with students. And then for your information as well, at the bottom of the document, I did put the legal definitions that are provided to us from DPI of seclusion and physical restraint. Any questions for me?
Is that one easy?
Yes.
So in 2020 there's 13, in 2022 there's 49.
Yes.
Do you have an opinion why that would be?
In 2020, we still had several students who were virtual.
35%. 35% of our student population was still virtual.
Sure. Yep.
And then, yeah, I think that was probably the biggest impact that we could really trace it back to. It was prior to me coming on board when I went through and looked at the data. I really didn't see anything that struck me anecdotally. It really is just that matter of the reduction in our student population, and perhaps some of our students who have a harder time coping in school are some of the students who were at home learning virtually. That's a good question.
On the previous year, 21-22, you had more restraint only, and then the most recent year, that number dropped back down, but you have more that included both. Is that just due to the methodology with how you guys are handling that?
Yeah, and how quickly, so with the restraint, as soon as the student calms down, we back off and give them space. And so it could just be a matter of, you know, how students are responding as well. It really varies. It's so situational.
So you look at that 14 students out of the entire 1,650, right? So one student moves in or out could have a significant difference on that data. Any other questions?
What's that? And I did want to, just one more thing too, another piece of data that I do have to report to the state is we have a small handful of students who are in alternative education settings or off-site placements. We have 4 students who are in programs in La Crosse, and we are responsible for reporting that data as well. We didn't have any incidences from our students who are in those off-site placements.
Thank you.
Is there just
yes?
a
I'm sorry.
So, are you required to break it down into ethnicity, white, Native Americans, Black?
Not for DPI, but I think it's interesting information for our district. DPI does not require that unless they do a deeper audit beyond. For this report, when we do our civil rights data collection report, this information must be included. But this is, for this particular report that I just sent a few weeks ago, that was not required information.
Thanks, Angie.
All right, next is our summer program report.
Excellent, just wanted to share with all of you all of the,
Don't we need to approve that report?
oh,
yes.
Sorry.
I make a motion to approve this food and restraint report.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I'm sorry, thank you. Now, summer program report.
Sure, so you can see that our participation was pretty heavy this year. If you look at all of the diverse classes that were offered, we ended up with 42 additional students that we get to add to our enrollment. But Jill, tell me, is it a third or fourth?
40%.
40%. So of the 42 students, we get to claim 40% of them added on to our enrollment for the year because of the minutes and services provided during the summer. So you can see a wide variety of courses that were offered and lots of kids taking advantage of those opportunities. That does not need your approval, just sharing.
Further questions on that? All right, 7.5, our fall data review.
I'm just going to clarify the baseline, the alt-ed. Oh, nobody's after that. Sorry, the at-risk is after that. I apologize. So I shared with you, oh, I do have something in there, okay. So this is our attendance rate. I just want to be really clear exactly what we're looking at, everybody. So the state determines a student to be chronically absent if they miss 10% of the available days of instruction. So there's a lot of ways to measure attendance. You could do the percentage of students that technically meet truant. You could do an average daily rate of attendance. You can measure it in so many different ways. On our state report card, they talk about the chronically absent kids. So that number is a number that can change any given month. So as of October 1st, the day we ran that, there were a total of 23 days of school possible. So any student that missed 2.5 days or more was considered chronically absent. So because there's 37 of the 12th graders in October does not mean that there will be 37% because there's going to be 20 more days possible. And if they don't miss 2 days out of that possible 20, they would fall off of the chronically absent. So this one's kind of a moving target. We offer more days and they attend, therefore there's fewer of them that are chronically absent. Does that make sense? So many of the grade level teams have set some goals around the percentage of students that are chronically absent. This is starting at kindergarten. And our percentage of students. If you notice, you're going to see consistently that kids are attending Red Creek more regularly than they are any of the other buildings. Would you like to share the strategy at the elementary for parents?
Yeah, so as some of you know, I have a 4K-er. So there are 4 doors, Melanie's can correct me where I'm wrong here, there's 4 doors to get into that building. On the left one, they tell how many early departures, I believe it is. The next one is late arrivals. The next door is percent of students who were, or percent total attendance, and then the next one was the goal of 85%. And I don't remember, Melanie, is it 25 left early, 45 late arrivals, 82% attendance, and 85% goal?
Yeah, and we need to, well, we adjust that every week. We need to adjust that actually, but yes.
So they have taken the stance at Forest Street that let's talk about it and show the whole, every parent that stops in exactly where we're at so that the numbers don't sneak up on you and be shocking. Both elementary schools this year started when it is time for the bell to ring in the morning and class starts. They have a big sign outside that says, oops, class has already started. I don't know the exact words, but the parent must then get out of their car and walk their child in and sign them in, and not for shaming purposes, but for the acknowledgement. Instruction has started. You are now missing active instruction. So I appreciate those attempts at ways to just raise awareness by parents that here's the time and you're past it.
What's the SES mean?
Socioeconomic status. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. So as part of an equity audit, as we look at our data, we know that there are many different ways you can slice it and dice it. I talked to you before about our TANI network. We have been identified by the state for our gaps between our native and non-native students at the high school. Therefore, it feels responsible to continue to measure that all the way through, because problems at the high school don't start in 9th grade. They are a product of the system moving through. So we divide this up. So this would be all 4 students. K and 1 is 15%. Our non-free and reduced would be 8%, and our free and reduced would be 22%. So that's what you're looking at. When it says SES, that is those students that are below the federal poverty limit. Then it has the special ed population, non-SPED, and then non-native and Native American. And I just want to be clear, the non-native is all of the other ethnicity groups. We've shared this with the Ho-Chunk Education Department during our regular meetings, and so that means that this one that says native, oh, that one's not on there. The one that says native is missing some Native American students, because we definitely have some Native students who are 2 or more races, and they would not be reflected there. So if a parent clicked white or African or Asian or 2 or more races, all of those got lumped together into non-native. So just so we are clear what we are looking at.
It's on the next page.
Okay, next page, thank you. Any questions about any of that?
I do appreciate seeing that every month, and it'll be interesting to see how that progresses.
Okay.
I feel that it's a very important life skill for people to know to show up on time and attend.
That's the number 1 employment skill.
Employment skill, life skill, just it's an important thing, and it doesn't get better always after they wear that little square hat,
For sure. Employability skills, definitely. So anytime a parent talks to you about some of their challenges, make sure you throw in there, how many days gone have you been? And that is something else that we had a conversation at admin. It is 2.5 days for any reason. Any reason. So I fell and broke my leg and needed to be gone that half day because they put a cast on. Yep, that's chronically absent. So it is more broad in the definition of absent because it's not for filing truancy. Truancy is part or more of 5 days unexcused absence. So this truly is a measure of how often kids are at school. Okay? All right. And then this is our ELA. I decided and shared with the principals that I feel like sometimes things get lost in translation in the different presentations and charts and all of that stuff. And so we thought our data is the same tools in ELA 2nd through 8th grade. Why not talk about 2nd through 8th grade all at once? And then in math, it's kindergarten through 8th grade all at once. And so if Skylar, I hope you noticed that we added the number of students to the percentages, so we are crystal clear on both sides. We can talk about the number and the percentage there. This was data taken from the assessment very early in the school year, like week 2, eked into week 3 because we're having some technical difficulties. I'll just let you scroll out, and if people have specific questions, I feel like you're all pretty savvy at reading these charts. I don't know that I need to decipher them for you, but the principals are all at the ready if you'd like.
It'll be more interesting when we see the next one.
Yep, because fall baseline is really what happened over summer.
Exactly.
Yep. And then math was the other. And this one goes down to kindergarten because they do use the same assessment for math. This is the first time that you've looked at the achievement data broken down, and so these charts are arranged a little bit differently. That whole middle one is socioeconomic status, and then the next one is all, SPED, sorry, it's jumping. The next one is our SPED comparison, and then the last one is the ethnicity. So you've not seen it disaggregated before. I will be interested in your feedback if you think that is value added for you or not. It is definitely something that we need to keep tabs on. I am uncertain if you feel it needs to be.
I just thought it was very interesting to see that our kindergartners, come in. Sure, first time taking a test, 80% are already 1 grade level below.
Right. Nicole referenced some data from that last year when she talked about our school readiness, our phonics teaching strategies goals, those assessments that go along with that, that are percentage of kindergartners that come in ready to learn is really not what we'd like it to be.
Right.
Yeah. And remember that NA is because you can't be 3 or more grade levels behind in kindergarten because
Right.
it doesn't
That's
exist.
gonna affect
Yeah.
first,
Right.
second, and third grade
Right. So,
in a few years.
correct. Any questions about any of that?
So, Tom Ebb was asking about second grade, 2 grade level behind. Second grade is already second.
Yeah.
It cannot be.
You couldn't be 3 grade levels behind in second grade.
So
correct.
this is error.
Well, that's why it says not applicable in that last column, the NA in the last column, because the computer can't compute what would be 3 grade levels behind from second grade. So I don't know that it's an error. I think it's telling you that 38% of our students are 2 or more grade levels behind is what I believe they're telling us.
And they're already in a second grade and they are 2 grade level behind.
Yep, and you can move up to our kindergartners just coming in, that 89% of them are 1 grade level behind.
So kindergarten are 1 grade level behind, but
They can't be.
the first grade is not a kindergarten. Is it kindergarten?
For all students, yes. The mandatory attendance starts at kindergarten. We offer halftime 4K, but kids are not required to attend that.
Shelley, I just have a question. Do parents know that their child can opt out of these testing days?
We really hope that they don't, but I'm uncertain if they know that. They definitely know when it comes to the state forward exam that they can opt out of those. That counts against us on the state report card. If we have low test participation, we're docked points for that. Because of the academic decisions that are made from this data, it would be really unfortunate if parents just said, I don't want my kid to take it, because then it would be difficult for us to know how to program those students. This is pretty low stakes testing. This is 3 times a year. It is for instructional planning. The teachers look at this and their daily classroom interactions and try to program the kids in the right target time from that. So we don't have many students that are opting out of this. I'm looking to the principals. Do you have any? No.
Just a handful out of the forward.
Out of the forward, yep. The Wisconsin forward, there's a small handful there too. This stuff isn't reported to the state. This is just for local use. Anything else on that?
Next, we have 7.6. There was a clarification on, I have to look at it again, I think there was a breakdown of non-returning, is that correct?
Correct, yep. So,
we didn't discuss page number 2. There's another page behind it.
Sure, what would you like to discuss?
If we go there.
You closed it, didn't you?
I did.
Thought we were done. Would you like to ask your question now and we can?
Yeah, page number 2 of a math and then page number 2 of ELA English. It has some very disturbing data. What kind of is this the real deal? Real test? Already? This one?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. It is a real assessment that we utilize.
Okay, it says Red Creek non-native 2% out of 322. It means 7 students are doing good and 325 are behind. If I could see on the screen.
She's working on it. We had moved on.
Are we on math?
Yeah, math backside.
So you're looking at these columns.
Yes,
Red Creek.
so let's go to Red Creek, Native American 113.
Yeah.
And 3%, or let's say mid or above grade level, are 2% of 130.
So 5% of the 113 are at.
2%, the mid or above grade level is a 2% out of 113 are just 2 students are doing good. The rest of the Native American students, 110, are not doing good.
I disagree with that. That could be your opinion. It was the first week of school, and it says early on grade level. So there was 3% of them that were early on grade level, and it was early on that grade level. So, I mean, it's semantics, but that's your opinion.
Yes, and then early level, grade level, if we see the definition, they are also behind in their own grade level. They are 3%. And then we go to middle school, non-native. What is non-native? Are you folks ashamed to be white guys?
I just explained what non-native is. Did everyone else catch that? I just explained that.
So is it okay to write white?
But it's not just white students. It's white, it's 2 or more races, it's African American, it is Hispanic. I just explained all that.
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
But we are predominantly white society, so in order to understand, I know we have a Hispanic, African American, Asian. They are less than 1% in a DPI data in Jackson County. We're talking about predominant society. It says non-native. It just confused me so very much who I am talking about. So let's say they are all races, white people, Asian, and all those guys. So 9% in the middle school, non-native, 9% of 247 are doing good, are mid or above grade level. It means only 23 students out of 247, and 224 are struggling. They are not on the right track, but they are struggling. They will come to the right track. So, and then we go middle school, Native American student, 88 student early on the grade level are 10%. It means 9 students are doing good in middle school, and then 28% are 1 grade level behind, 2 grade level behind, 18%, 44 are 3 grade level behind. So this is early on data. It will progress, right? So it will get better and better.
We should hope so.
We should hope so too. This is, I spent a lot of hours understanding who are not non-white people, non-white,
non-native.
Non-native. Are you ashamed of being white?
Iftikhar, that is not at all what my intention was. Please don't put words into my mouth.
No, I'm asking her if she's ashamed of being white.
No.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong being white.
But that's not saying white.
It's saying non-native, so we live in a predominantly white society.
So when you display student data, if you break it down into groups that are too small, you're not allowed to publish that data because it becomes identifying information. And our students are protected by FERPA laws.
So we have to say we can say about Native Americans, but we cannot say for the white folks.
So here's my concern, Iftikhar. If I wouldn't have lumped all of those groups together, you've been asking a lot of questions about the number of students. So this was my attempt at making sure you could count every single student. Okay. And if I did not lump all those other ethnicity groups into non-native, I would not be able to put the number of Black students, the number of Asian students, the number of 2 or more races, because there's not 20 at any grade level. So they would not have been reported anywhere, and you would have said, Shelley, why are there kids missing? Where are you hiding kids?
So for our convenient, so we adopted by saying middle school non-native for our convenience. That is good. That's
to
good.
Protect people's privacy.
To protect the people's privacy, but I just want to make sure nothing wrong being white.
Of course not.
Okay, that's my only question is.
Okay.
Okay, now we move on to ELA English, page number 2. Red Creek Native American student in English by ethnicity, by their race. So 4% out of 113 are doing good. Red Creek Native American, 4% out of 113 are doing good. It means 4 students. 6% out of 113 means 6 students, approximately 6 students are on the grade level, and then rest of them are super behind, 1 grade, 2 grade, 3 grade. I calculated all together 7 students are doing good, 106 are not doing good if we count 8 them all. So that is very alarming and challenging statement. I just thought to share with you folks, maybe we could have 3 or 4 emergency meetings. This is the only concern. The school was built. That was our entire aim of life. These folks, we will help them in education. This is why a school was established on the first place. It's not my opinion, it is a fact. A school was built for students to be successful. Thanks.
All right, moving on, the data clarification, 7.6.
Last month there was a lack of clarity around what non-returning meant, and so Mr. Erickson and Mrs. Hankey dug in a little bit and broke down all those different possibilities for not returning. As soon as the meeting was over, of course, they thought of all those solutions, but didn't think of it right at the moment we asked the question. So we are just reporting that data out to you again with that additional clarity offered. So no action needed.
All right, any questions on that one? All right, 7.7 MLSS at the elementary level.
Sure.
I would like to talk about it. Me and Jeanette, we attended one meeting with 3 principal with the help of good coordination with superintendent. We just did not show up there. We make a very good plan ahead of a time. We send questions, what we will be asking, and then I wrote a little report. This is kind of Pakistani thing. Let everybody know what is going on. But I was not supposed to do that. So had I not sent this report, I would have lived in a darkness. I would have lived ignorant. I was told 64 teachers and 460 students, which ratio is 1 to 7. But this is wrong information. Had I not sent it, I would have lived in an ignorant lifestyle that everything is going good. 1 teacher and 7 students is exceptionally good. But it was not the case. I am very glad that I sent it. At least somebody corrected me that this is wrong information. So therefore, it is very important that in our website we should write Forest Street, how many students, how many teachers. Middle school, how many students, how many teachers. High school, how many students, how many teachers. So we can understand the ratio. Without ratio, the world will collapse. This building based on ratio. Everything based on ratio. The bridge we cross every day based on ratio. So therefore, we have, with my reliable resources, I found out correction. There are only 23 teachers I was told there are 3 interventionalists. They teach 40 minutes and 30 minutes they do interventionalism, which means 70 minutes one session. And those 3 interventionists are also teachers.
What you just said is not accurate. I just want to be clear. So,
but I'm telling you what I have wrote down in my notes.
Okay.
So mistakes could happen, right?
Sure could.
Nobody is misleading anybody intentionally. So there is also one thing I wrote, 460 students. Now I will not believe it either, unless I see now, from now on, a certificate and you sign it, that many students are there. Because I got the wrong information. Now I don't believe 460 students are in the Red Creek. It created doubt in me. So I would like to see the exact count. So I can establish ratio. If ratio does not matches, I can file a motion to hire more teachers. This is the whole purpose of meeting with them, to find out if they have appropriate staff. It was in my questions. Are you equipped with staff? They are not if they have 23 teachers and if they believe 460 students. So one teacher teaching 20 to 25 students. That's a lot of students if they are 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. One teacher, 20 to 25 students would be a very challenging task. So I just thought it was a good move on my behalf that I sent this information, and now I don't live in a darkness or in an ignorance. I know the accurate information. Yes, Shelly, you would like to say something?
I'm good.
Can I just ask a question? So at that meeting, can I ask what Melanie or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So when we were there, how many staff members do we have that are involved in teaching or assisting interventionalist at Red Creek or Brandon?
So if I could just throw it, that gets a little bit complicated when we're talking about classroom teachers, so the teachers that are assigned to a classroom of kids, versus I'm the music teacher, so I'm a teacher there, but I'm not taking a regular class of kids, right? And so I believe that is where some of the conclusions were inappropriately drawn. So are you talking classroom teachers and interventionists, or are you talking, because there's also special ed teachers, are they in the mix?
Correct, I realize that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we talked about a total, if in all areas, correct? And you shared how many did we have, including support staff?
And custodians and kitchen
No.
staff? And
No,
I shared the entire list, which I had a count of that was available, 77 staff members. That includes custodians and cooks and that sort of thing. We have 23 classroom teachers, 3 interventionists, 6 special education teachers, and then about 14 special education aides.
and so that's where I believe we got the total, if we added those up.
I mean, that's not 60, 65 or whatever was initially reported, but yep.
I think you just gave us like a rough estimate.
It was a rough estimate.
Correct.
So is a 460 student?
452 we're sitting at right now.
452. I wrote it 460. This kind of disturbed the ratio if I request the board that we want to hire more teachers. So in order to establish ratio, so I would like to know the exact number, but thank you so very
The
much.
enrollment changes pretty regularly. I would say at least once a week, a student comes or goes. I mean, it is regular. Student numbers change all the time. It's not like we lock our doors on the first day and say no more are coming in. There is constant change.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that because I think it was just more of a rough estimate because we didn't want to include the custodians and the cooks. We wanted just the teachers is what we were focused on during that meeting. So, and support staff. And the same, Melanie, you provided with forestry.
Yeah, and that was, we did not have a list in front of us when we
Correct.
did that number, that was in.
It was just a rough
Yes.
number.
Right, any more on that item?
No.
We will move on to the 8 series. You had in your packet the expenditures. Any questions for Jill?
Make a motion to approve the monthly expenditures as presented.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And now we are up to the annual tax levy.
All right. Kind of busy weekend in the business office.
Why did they release that on Fridays? Just to torture Jill?
Friday the 13th too, can we just talk about that?
So
At
did you
least
go
it
home
was-
at all this weekend, or were you just in your office?
Wasn't that bad. It's supposed to be the 15th, so at least they gave it to us on the 13th, because 15th was on the weekend. So I want to take this opportunity not just talk about the tax levy, but something that is a little bit different this year and we haven't talked about before, but I think it's worth the board knowing a little bit more about, and that's school levy tax credits. They're on all of our property tax bills, but this year is just a little bit different than it has been in the past because we don't usually talk about them, right? But this year is just a little bit different, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Oh, what am I struggling with? Technology. And I have 2 of them open, that's probably why. Sorry about that. I have none of it. Hold on a second. The suspense is killing you, I'm sure. All right. Again.
Our names are gonna pop up. That animation.
I can't advance it though.
It is, because you have our names popping up, you have animation in there, so keep
It's
clicking
taking
faster.
forever. I see what
Keep,
you're saying.
there you go.
Oh, good lord. Okay. Just want to remind the board about our budget approval process. This is a slide from June, and we learned a lot since that last happened. We received our we took our third Friday count in September. That is for the revenue limit, and that guides our what we can do on the tax levy and all that. Our equalized property value was certified by the Department of Revenue on October 1st. So the property value is what helps determine what our levy mill rate will be. The equalization aid was certified by the DPI last Friday. And our final budget and tax levy approval is tonight by the board, because we need to do that in October so that we can send out all the certifications to the municipalities, all 19 of them, so that they can then do their tax bills for all of their taxpayers in their areas. And then we will have the budget hearing next Monday night to talk more about the budget with all the taxpayers and electorate. So Just a reminder what the revenue limit is. It's a formula by the state that we must use. It more or less acts as a spending limit for us. It is a combination of basically equalization aid and property taxes. If we want to tax more than what that revenue limit allows us to do, we would have to go to referendum. There's also some safeguards in there for declining enrollment districts. It will help smooth out our revenue so that we aren't taking a big hit in any one year. So there's a 3-year rolling average. But basically it's our resident pupils times a dollar amount, and that is our revenue limit. This is just a little chart showing that. So our resident membership, this is a 3-year average, was $16.76. You'll remember that the maximum per revenue limit went to $11,000. So we were a low spending district. We were able to increase to that $11,000. We were at $10,109. There's also what's called some exemptions in the revenue limit. We have about 314,000 of them. I'll talk about those in a minute. We have no ongoing recurring exemptions. And then our total revenue limit authority is $18,750,000. So the one-time non-recurring exemptions that have affected our revenue limit, so this is the last 3 years. Furthest to the right is the current year, prior year, 2 years prior. We were in a declining enrollment situation, so the state gave us on the revenue limit a little bit of assistance. So 272 2 years ago, 171,000 last year, and now this year we're down to 99,000 for a declining enrollment exemption because we are not declining as much as we once were. So that is a pure calculation of comparing 3 years to the former 3 years to the former 3 years kind of situation. You can also see our private school voucher aid deduction has gone up. So 2 years ago that was 64,000, last year is 116,000, and this year it is now 173,000. And what that is it is giving us a little bit of a lift on our revenue limit for the amount that we send out to private schools for vouchers. What happens though is that difference from year to year is all on the taxpayers for the first year, because equalization aid follows the year after. So the first year, that difference in the increase is on the levy, basically. The following year, that would be included in some of our costs. The other for us is open enrollment out pupils that we didn't have the opportunity to count last year. We had exemption for this year then for $42,000. So after the DPI reconciles all the students coming and going, they send us a long list of students. Did you count this one? Did you count this one? Did you count this one? To make sure that a district was able to count a student for a variety of reasons. So we had a $42,000 little bit of a lift in our revenue limit as well for that. Looking at our revenue limit then, again, that $18,750,000, what happens next is we look at the equalization aid and subtract that off, and basically the balance is our tax levy for Fund 10. We don't have any other items that we need to include in that revenue limit right now, so just Fund 10. There's a little bit included in here for computer aid and personal property aid. But the bulk of that is equalization aid at $12.8 million, resulting in $5.6 million for a Fund 10 levy. After we have the Fund 10 levy, then we add on our debt service levy. So we have a schedule of debt that we're repaying. We need to levy for those payments. We also have been doing a defeasance the last 6 years. So included in this amount, I'll talk a little bit about it later, is $300,000 for a defeasance as well. We have $20,000 levied for our community service tax levy, Fund 80. The bulk of that is for a percentage of Andy Ossegard for the activities director pieces that he does. And we also have our community education levy of $10,000 in there. We've done that for the last several years. So the total tax levy is $8,035,000.
Here's just a chart just showing the levy by type over the past several years, back to 2017-18. The blue is basically the Fund 10 levy, the orange is the referendum debt levy, and then there's a little teeny sliver, which you can't even see, is a community service levy. It's such a small part of the whole levy, it doesn't really show up. So as you can see over the years, our Fund 10 levy was dropping. We've filled that hole with debt service, doing that defeasance, trying to keep that levy a little bit more static and not changing a lot. And I'll talk about those strategies in a little bit, but the primary purpose is to pay off debt sooner and to save interest costs. That is the number one reason we're doing that. We've saved about $2 million in the last 6 years by doing that. Actually, I should say we've avoided interest costs of $2 million in the last 6 years. And here's the mill rate. So the mill rate is taking that levy and dividing it by our property values in the district. So you can see in 17-18 we had a mill rate of 945, and we were at 898 for a few years. And then the levy started raising a little bit, so we dropped the levy, and the mill rate dropped accordingly. We were at 794, 701 last year, and for 23-24 we're looking at $6.30. And that's even with a very, very slight increase in the levy. For defeasance. So what $6.30 would mean to a property taxpayer, $100,000 house, the school portion of their tax bill would be $630. If that same house was $100,000 last year, assessment values change and all of that, it would have been $701 last year. So it truly would be a drop if their assessed value doesn't change. Talking about the revenue debt again, $300,000 defeasance is built into the number of into that levy. That's for additional principal payments. We can pay down debt more quickly, avoiding interest expense on future debt. It also allows us to manage the levy, like I talked about, trying to not let it to keep dropping. We keep that levy amount in there should we ever need to go, and we may need to go to a revenue limit override, a referendum to exceed that revenue limit I talked about first. There would be a way that instead of doing the defeasance, we might be able to feather in an operating revenue limit override in there instead. So it wouldn't be on top of what we're already doing, it would be instead of what we're doing, at least for the most part. The new thing I wanted to talk about tonight is the school levy tax credit for the district. So that $300,000 defeasance I talked about, our school levy tax credit for the whole district is $333,000 more than it was last year. And that is significant. That's kind of an unprecedented growth amount. So it more than takes care of that defeasance amount, and you'll see a little bit later how that affects that. So there's all these different impacts on the property tax levy. We had the revenue limit, $325 per pupil, and then we were able to add even more, going up to that $11,000 per pupil. So we added about another $600 basically for the low revenue ceiling, because we are already above that $10,000 slightly. There's new voucher costs that, as you can see, they're on the revenue limit as well. It's another add. And then the other thing I haven't talked about tonight was the elimination of high poverty aid. That was something that we used to receive in this biennium budget. They did away with that. That was a $91,000 revenue that we no longer receive. So we have all these increases, and those impact the tax levy then. What decreases that tax levy then is the equalization aid, and we're receiving $200,000 more in equalization aid than we did last year. And then what happens after we set our levy, this isn't something, we don't get those school levy credits. They go to the municipalities, and then they show up on the tax bills. So they don't come to the school districts where we can say, oh, instead of levying this, we're gonna levy this much less. We're gonna levy $333,000 less. It doesn't happen that way. They go to the municipalities, they show up as credits on the tax bills. So what's the difference between equalization aid and school levy credits? They're both providing property tax relief, but it's just the difference of how, right? And to whom. We get the equalization aid here at the district, and that helps us set that property tax levy. And as I said, the school levy credits go to the municipalities. But both equalization aid and school levy credits are included in the calculation for 2/3 funding. So when you hear that, those really are for schools, but they show up as a credit on a property tax bill if they don't come directly to the district to reduce our levy before it goes to the municipalities. So I just want to make everybody aware of that, you know, we don't talk about it a lot because those levy credits, they've been there, but they haven't been as significant as they are this year. So the purpose of equalization aid is to minimize the differences among school districts across the state, and minimize their ability to raise the differences in their abilities to raise revenues for educational programs. So districts have different property wealth, and what that means is, you know, a lot of districts that have a lot of lakes and the property values are much higher or whatever it might be, they have a lot of property value behind each student. In the equalization aid formula, that means the state's going to share less with those districts. They're going to say, hey, district, you can afford to tax then and raise your, you know, revenues through taxes for that purpose. However, if you have a lower per pupil amount of property behind a student, then the state's going to share in more. And right now, the state shares in more of the revenue limit through state equalization aid than we do putting out a property tax levy. I would say it's about 70%, 65% is equalization aid, and 35% is property tax levy. So basically, the equalization aid is more helpful to property poor or low spending districts like ourselves, right? And the school levy credits, they actually help the higher wealthy districts. So the districts that have more wealth behind a student and don't fare as well in the equalization aid formula, they're getting more of these school levy credits than other districts like us who are more dependent on the equalization aid formula. So I keep talking about the 23-25 unprecedented amount. So the reason it's unprecedented because they put in $590 million in the biennium budget into school levy credits, and only $543 million was in equalization aid. So it was a significant amount. It's basically a 30% increase in school levy credits going into that type of funding. So 30% went into school levy credits. Rationale that I heard for that move was, so remember, equalization aid is money that we can spend, whereas school levy credits are property tax relief very directly. There was a lack of agreement as to where the state surplus funds should go, and that was the spot where people could feel like it was kind of education, but also property tax relief. And so both parties could agree to school levy credits. So that is what I heard as to why it was such an unprecedented amount. Again, not spendable dollars for us, but looked kind of like it was an investment in education. So again, I talked about the revenue limit, minus the state equalization aid. This is the simplest form of it. So minus state equalization aid is the school district tax levy. That's our responsibility to do that. Then below the line are school levy credits. The municipalities have the responsibility of applying those to taxpayer bills, and then that's where we come up with the net property taxes. So what does it look like if our property tax levy was net of the school levy tax credit? So the first column is our 22-23 levies. Here's our Fund 10 amount, 4.5 million. Our Fund 39 was 3.3 million. We had a little bit larger defeasance last year, again, trying to level out that tax levy. Community Service Fund was 19,000 last year for a total levy of $7.8 million. Then comparing it to this year, The Fund 10 levy is at 5.6 million. Again, because the revenue limit increased a lot, going to the $11,000. A majority of that is going on the tax levy, although we are still getting more equalization aid, only $200,000 more than last year. The referendum debt, Fund 39, we're actually only defeasing another $300,000 there. Last year was much more. Community Service Fund, Fund 80, $20,000. Total levy, $8 million, $8,035,000. You can see the differences in those. Fund 10 is going up by $1 million. Fund 39 is going down by $940,000, and Community Service Fund $575. That's a total levy increase of $145,000, or 1.85%. But if we factor in the school levy credit, last year that school levy credit was 1.4 million, and our net levy would have been 6.4 million. The school levy credit this year is going up to 1.8 million, would make our net levy 6.2 million. So we're actually going down in the amount that we're levying for schools. If you take into account the school levy credit, that's going to be on the taxpayers' bills for property tax relief. So that to me is significant and worth mentioning that this increase of $333,000 more than takes care of the total levy increase that we're talking about. Now, I can't say as taxpayer A, yours is going to go down, yours is going to go up slightly. Everybody's different depending on the municipality they live in. I know the town of Adams was reassessed, and so they had a large value increase, but some municipalities had larger than others. Our average was 13.39%. You can see our equalized value was $1.1 billion. Now we're over $1.2 billion. That was an increase of $150 million in equalized value, or 13.39%. The state average was around 12.7, 12.8%. So we are slightly above average in that property value. Our mill rate is still going down again, but we're dividing a levy by a much bigger number in the property value. I'm sorry, so the mill rate's going down to 6.30, or a 10% decrease. This does not include, that mill rate is actual, that does not include the school levy credit. So I know I just dumped a whole bunch of numbers and a whole bunch of information on you. Do you guys have any questions about anything? School levy credit, the levy itself, or how that is impacted?
One question I had is on our defeasance. How did you decide on 300,000?
Well, that was just something we felt like we still wanted the levy to drop a little bit after the school levy credit. It's not a magic number. It provided us some strategy moving forward if we were to feather in some operational costs. It could be 350, it could be 250, but we felt 300,000 was the right number.
And it is rather arbitrary. I mean,
It
that was
is.
just us trying to figure out what would still allow the mill rate to drop while, because that strategy worked very well for us with that second facility referendum. The fact that we had used such a large defeasance earlier, we were able to avoid the millions of interest, but also to layer on that next facility project without impacting. So trying to be strategic, but also allowing that mill rate to drop as it is throughout the state. The assessed values, we just looked through the list of the 19 municipalities. There's some municipalities like 20%, 9%, 19%, sorry. There's a couple of them above 20%. And then there's a few that are like 4%, 6%. So super random where they decided to reassess and where they didn't. But when you look at a 13.39% increase, you would assume there's lots of new construction, and that's not necessarily the case. It is your property is now valued higher than it previously was. So
Yeah, I did look into that to see if any our TIF districts were coming off that would put value back onto our equalized property value. You can look up on the Department of Revenue website, and they have how much is current, home sales
that drives the costs of homes as well. Or if it's new construction, and it was only 1.7% new construction, so it was really a small number.
Really good job. So you do need action on this, correct? But then we still.
Right, so what I'm needing for you, asking you to do is to approve the tax levy and the modifications that go with it, basically to the levy and the equalization aid. And then this would be the levy that I share with taxpayers. And then we would repost it in the paper again after that.
Do you want to have a discussion about the amount of defeasance in there, or
I just wondered how you
okay.
got.
Yeah, there really was not a lot of magic, just trying to allow that school levy credit still to allow some property tax relief, but still try to be strategic about having that levy stay kind of flat and give us an opportunity for a revenue limit override if we do need to go that route.
Yeah, and I'm all for paying off more earlier, but our bonds are at such a low rate that there's also that tipping point on does it really make sense to pay off very rapidly.
That's true.
I move to certify the annual tax levy as presented.
I will second that. Any further discussion? That's right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Budget modifications.
Jill, would you mind sending that presentation out to the board? That wasn't in the packet because she was still working on it, but it's a ton of numbers, but maybe you would appreciate being able to review it again.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Faster, I
It
just.
was a very good presentation, thank you.
Budget modifications were, actually I have a handle for that. So based on what I just presented and you just approved, these would be the budget modifications. The final column includes the 23-24 budget with that tax levy and equalization aid in there. I included the debt service fund and the community service fund so you could see what our revenues and expenditures are there. And then the tax levies down at the bottom on the right. I did not include all the other funds that did not change that you saw and approved in June, Fund 50, Fund 27, Fund 21, all of those, so. The fees would be where the numbers had changed.
And you need approval on this one as well?
Yes, just to approve the budget modifications.
Motion to approve the budget modifications as presented.
Second.
Alright, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, kind of dovetailing off our previous discussion, scoreboard at Tiger Stadium. Nick, do you wanna? You kind of brought this up, do you wanna speak on this?
Kind of a little bit, I just noticed this fall, I guess, at football games that, both of the advertisers on this scoreboard are not in existence anymore. It's Jackson County Bank and SunTree Tel. So, I just didn't know if there was, and I know you said that the scoreboard does work, but I know you said like the light bulbs are getting
It's certainly getting older.
harder, it's.
Yeah.
We have to physically go to it when something's not working as opposed to, everything else being electronically monitored, so.
So do you have an idea on what a scoreboard costs now?
So she asked me, should I look that up? And I said, well, let's figure out first if they're gonna ask us to buy it, or, because you could buy a really inexpensive one, or their video screens all over the place, right? Like, that range is hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I'm curious if the board wants to try to do some fundraising the individual who emailed you about the naming said he would be happy to head up a fundraising effort for the naming of the field. I'm curious if that is something that you want to jump into, or if you're asking us to fit that into the district capital maintenance projects.
I think if there's someone interested in lining up some fundraising, it's not a
Can
bad
I
idea.
ask who contacted you, Tom?
What's that?
Who contacted you about?
Mike Richards.
I think it'd be appropriate to just poke around a little bit and see what's out there for people interested in, doing stuff.
Either I'm doing it or I'm not. Poking around as the district is a little weird, but we can certainly see.
Ask a few questions,
For sure.
people.
That's something the Tiger Booster Club might.
Athletic boosters, we could certainly ask them if they're
They
interested.
might
Start there.
They start there and maybe go and see if there's any interest.
On their agenda for November, I could certainly add to it.
Talk to my boss.
The scoreboard is really hard to read when you're live streaming it. I can never
Yeah.
figure out what the other team has.
The bulbs are so big that kids
And people are asking questions, what's the score? You can tell from the banter going on between them.
Yeah. Yes. There were the kids
So
that said, we
what
have
do you
0. I'm like, it's an 8. There's
What
just
do
a
you
bulb
got?
out there. It's an 8.
That scoreboard? I really have no idea. I remember when that scoreboard was bought, it was about $10,000.
I did a quick search and it says they're between $40,000 and $750,000.
Yeah, I knew
So
there'd be a wide range,
there's a window.
It's a big window.
Right. Well, if Nick's Welding is getting behind us, I think we can go big, so.
That's always
for the
wanted a
fence, huh?
Jumbotron.
Was he wanting to be? Was he wanting to be a sponsor?
Yes, Nick's Jumbotron.
And Northern Farms, we're
Right.
good.
Let's
move on. Have a motion. Do I have a motion?
So do you want to form a motion on that to move forward, or it's still exploratory at this point, so?
I think we should do a little scouting and maybe just report back to the group. Does that make sense? Poking around.
Fishing.
I mean, I think we should. What year did you say that was bought?
Early 2000s. I mean, it's old.
So it's getting end of life.
Oh, yeah.
Same song and dance we've heard before, right? It's getting end of life. We should plan to replace it. It doesn't have to be this year, but we should plan to replace it. If we need to raise funds, now is the time to.
It's certainly on our capital maintenance project plan, but it keeps getting pushed, right?
And if we can find new advertisers and rename the field, and we can do that.
Shelly, I like your word poking around.
That was his word. I'm mocking him.
3 days ago, I learned never poke the sleeping dragon. I never heard of that.
Oh.
So it is good to poke a sleeping dragon.
If you're Nick and you have a welding thing, I guess. I don't know.
You'll see some fire come up.
I ain't scared to poke a bear.
All right. So, yeah, we don't need any action on that. Sounds like everyone agrees that we need to do something, whatever that something is. So we'll move on to 8.5. Nick, this is, again, you brought this up. This is based primarily on the Shooting Tigers are
volunteers.
Unpaid volunteers. So, yeah.
So I called Scott Getska, who has been the amazing workhorse behind our Shooting Tigers, and had an absolutely delightful conversation with him. He is just one of those humans that you just feel better after talking to, right? He just is always so good. I said that I wanted to talk to him about coaches' compensation. He started laughing and he said, "Tell Nick Helsted to leave it alone," was his exact words. And I said, however, we want to make sure that the district isn't taking for granted the work that you're doing, and we want to make it feel respectful to you and the coaches who are volunteering. And he asked what the average coach makes, and he said he didn't think that was going to be a game changer for him or any of the other individuals. And I said, however, we talked about the whole funding model behind the Shooting Tigers, how much families are asked to pay. We did discover that right now our Shooting Tigers, we're still paying a $20 activity fee, and we did away with the activity fee. It is now a concussion test fee, and Shooting Tigers is one activity that they don't need to be concussion tested. And so that $20 that we charge each of our athletes, only they pay it one time for the whole year, regardless of how many sports. It literally pays for the impact testing. So it's a direct cost, and they're paying for it now, as opposed to before we had that donated to us and we collected those fees as a revenue source. So we've stopped doing that. I told them you can lower your rates by $20 per student and the families will appreciate that, or you can keep your rate the same and use that $20 per student to offset more of the cost. I am very sure that he does a donation of ammunition and targets every single year. In the end, I said, how many coaches would you say there are? And he named like 8 of them. And I said, so again, we want to be respectful and make sure that you feel supported and appreciated by the district. But for the number of students involved, we would probably not pay 8 coaches. And so if it comes under our coaching compensation, we have a number of athletes per coach and all of that stuff, it would get messy. I said, what if we looked at the number of students that are involved in Shooting Tigers and the number of coaches that we would staff that at, and the district made that donation to either offset the student rates or to the organization, so the coaches stopped paying out of their own pocket for traveling to those national or the state tournaments or national tournaments, even if it was transportation kinds of things. Would that be helpful? And he said, I have never asked for anything. This is an absolute passion and joy for me. If it's going to make you sleep better to pay us, then you feel free to do that. But I personally do not want to get paid as a coach, and I'm quite confident none of the other guys do either. So that's where it's at. I don't want to pay him as a coach because he was very clear that this is something he does because it's his passion. And he even said, he goes, we as a business don't give as many donations to all of the other asks because we've decided youth safe Shooting Tigers is where we choose to invest our business donations. And so it's a conscious choice by us. No one's asked us, forced us, obligated us. He goes, this is what we do. So I don't know if that changes your thoughts or at all.
Well, I know it's not like a deal breaker right at all, you know, it's just that I just thought it kind of, obviously these people put a lot of time into it, and they've had a successful program, and there's like 50, 60 kids that are involved in it, so it's not like it's a small program or anything.
Not at all.
You know.
And so I heard you when you said that you'd like to add legitimacy to it. So the other example I could think of was like figure skating. So our student athletes that are part of the figure skating club, we don't pay any of those coaches. Those families are still paying for that. We allow the kids to letter in that sport, so we acknowledge it as a sport, but don't pay any of that ice time or anything for figure skating. So Shooting Tigers isn't the only example where the coaches aren't under our employment. Like rodeo, we had a student that lettered in rodeo, and we don't pay for any part of rodeo, but that was something that their family did, and we accepted that legitimacy by letting the kids letter. Do Shooting Tigers letter ever? Or perhaps that would be a way to add They do? They do, okay, sorry. So that already does add some legitimacy to it?
Yeah.
He was, I mean it, he was so delightful to talk to. He was
a nice guy.
He's a super nice guy.
Very nice.
And so this is his interest, his passion, so.
And I think all those that coach feel the same way. They don't, some don't even have kids.
Anymore,
majority
right?
of
Like,
them,
Yeah.
So I don't know what the board would like me to do.
Do they do awards, like medals, like when they do their
At tournaments,
competitions?
the tournaments, they get stuff.
Whoever's hosting that tournament would purchase
Would
that.
purchase
And then
them.
you guys have entry fees into those tournaments, right?
Yeah, each kid pays more to go in whichever tournament they want to do.
Yeah. There's like an endowment fund that I would need Jill's help remembering all the details, but there's an endowment that helps to offset that ammunition and, you know, some of those travels and stuff, and then each student paying is not that unlike, you know, basketball parent buying the shoes, you know, I mean, it's kind of comparable, but, so I'm asking what you would like me to do with that.
It's just something I was, you know, if we could offset some of the cost for the league itself.
So the only equitable way I could think to do that is look at the number of students involved, how many coaches comparable sports have, right? Like, so football, I think had 50 players, 60 at some point, I don't know, and we had 5 paid coaches, so, but then basketball sometimes has, you know, 3 teams, right? So it's just a coach to athlete ratio. Soccer, there's a whole team and there was 1 coach for a bunch of years, and
Right.
so.
Ammunition is going up, has
For
gone
sure.
up tremendously, and the
sure.
safety, think of the safety involved.
So like our head coaches make, it depends on the sport. Our middle school coaches make $1,000 for coaching their season. So it is not significant, but it is money out of our budget that they're not asking for. So I would just remind us of that as well.
Do we want to do some thinking on this and come back? I'm not seeing anyone having a.
I guess, I know it's not necessary, just thought it'd be kind of
Nice to do.
something like that.
Joe, do you remember transportation? Didn't we do busing for a few events?
Trap shooting we did.
Yeah, we offered. Trap shooting, we've offered transportation, which helps. But thank you.
So he didn't give you any ideas?
He said, I can't
He
believe the
just
school
said
has
no.
extra money lying around. I said,
All right,
we don't. We want you to feel respected and seen and appreciated. And he said, check it off your list. I do all those things. So.
We can check it off our list.
Right, yeah. I will thank him heartily next time I see him.
Please do.
Feature him in the Tiger Tribune, I mean,
That would be good.
that would be, you know, get some more PR attention.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm not hearing any motions on that one, so I think we're gonna pass that by. Is that okay? We are up to the second reading of 8.6, our policy, our board policies. So again, these were packets last weekend, or excuse me, last month and this month. Any that anyone wants to pull out specifically and discuss, otherwise I'm looking to do this by consent agenda.
I move for consent agenda approval of the policy revisions.
Second.
Tom seconded.
Tom seconded, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 8.7 we already discussed. 9.1 is meeting minutes. That is September's meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I will second that. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. District admin?
I just shared with you the exit interview information from last spring, just so everyone's clear on how that goes when somebody resigns. Marty sends them a letter and they can either make an appointment to come in and talk to me in exit interview format, or they can fill out the form. We don't get a fantastic response rate. More often they'll just say, I'm good. But just wanted you to have that information as it has been referenced in the past. So you all have that. The only other thing I wanted to let you know, I told you previously that we were working on a new agreement with the Hockey Association, youth hockey, for our high school teams that completely flipped the way that we are paying for our hockey teams, and it will most certainly increase our costs for those sports. They are now renting the ice and facility and all of it to us at a rate of $125 per hour, period. Up until this year, they have done concessions, and they have done the gate fee, and they've kept those profits. They are washing their hands of that for high school events, and they want us to find workers for concessions in their booth, and they expect us to take tickets. And Andy is a little bit concerned about finding people willing to do that. He already really struggles to get all of the other events covered. So it was unfortunate, but the youth hockey board was extremely strong in what they wanted to happen, and so it wasn't really much of a negotiations. It was more we were told that this is the way it will be. So it's unfortunate, but it is signed. It is agreed for this year. We did ask them for a 3-year guarantee on the ice rental rate. We're concerned that this method of doing it gives them a lot more control to increase the prices more rapidly. They have assured us that that is not their intention. They say that they understand that their youth program is more successful when it can lead into varsity programs. I repeatedly told them that we are incredibly unique to be a town this size and have 2 varsity programs when most of the girls hockey programs are, like Spash and Wisconsin Rapids are co-op for a girls hockey team. It's ridiculous the size we are that has it. And so I just said that at some point we might price people right out of that varsity sport. And that would be unfortunate because I think their youth numbers will drop if there's not that varsity to aspire to. So it was not the resolution we were hoping for, but it has been signed. That's all I have.
WASB other?
I have a point. This is in my agenda, exit interviews. I read each one of them. They have their own good reason to leave the job. Some family things, some moving. If you read the exit interview number 4, on the second page, line number 22, this individual says, the community group that is so hateful towards education, Jackson County for Education. I was wondering, maybe you could reach out to Jackson County for Education to diffuse the situation, and let's community always move together, and this is how our board members' duties are. Those who are angry with us, we will bring them on board. Let's sit down and diffuse the situation. We do not want more and more partition and anger and grudge that will hurt the education. Therefore, I would request you, superintendent and many board members, reach out to them. Who are these people? Diffuse the situation. If this is our aim, to join the community as a one unit, so we can get out and help our fellow citizens who are doing education in our school district. Am I right? It is in there. They wrote it.
For certain. That was
You read it too, right?
Of course.
Yeah, I read all of them were good, but one person is disappointed, we'll take it seriously. 3% did not take it seriously. They never talked about it. So I would say we must reach out to this small group and diffuse the situation, and let's move together.
I feel that we have done some outreach to that group. I agree. But it's going to take a bit because there were some hateful things said. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Eventually, we all have to move forward.
So is it okay to invite them in the board meeting and talk to them, or should we reach out to them? Where is their office? Where they live? Like a Democratic office is there, Republican office is there. They have some kind of office or something?
No.
I don't know.
I'm unaware of that. I would be shocked, but I don't know that.
They don't have an office. So this is my recommendation. We want to make the community as a one unit. so we can move smoothly faster.
Right,
Future
thanks.
agenda?
What's that?
Are you on the future agenda?
No.
Not yet?
Conference or workshop attendance? Oh, I'm sorry, WSB.
Well, a number of us went to the regional meeting. Tom, Mary Jo, myself, and Jessica, and Shelley.
That was good. Good food.
Good food.
It was at the Electric Trunkle. It was they hosted, it was nice seeing their facility and seeing all the other school board members and superintendents.
Any other conferences or workshops? All right, school board connection opportunities?
Saw lots of pictures from Canes, right? You're out there helping? Perfect.
Doesn't Forest Street have a family night this week?
Yes.
Thursday, I believe.
Thursday?
Yep, Thursday. Yes.
Copies and empty bowls, right? And
Yeah.
to those. Yep.
Copies.
That was,
Regis students, mentor students.
yeah, the Poppies, event day, whatever you wanna call it, was quite well attended, so. I don't know how many, it's, 1,500.
1,500, I think they got there.
They wanted
Getting close.
1,700 and he's.
They were close?
Yep, she's getting close. Just people make them all the time.
But, yeah, I mean, my boys and I made like 6 or 7 while we were there, so there's our dent.
They were running out of clay.
It's a lot of clay. Anything else on that? All right, future agenda items?
Yes, I have one future agenda item. Since I have updated information of elementary Red Creek, I would like to discuss, not filing motion, just to discuss if we could increase more teachers after knowing the facts, what is the beautiful or idle ratio. So I would like to have a discussion that what is beautiful ratio for teachers and students.
I'm gonna need clarification which categories of teachers you want counted. Classroom teachers, special ed, but this matters because this is where all these misunderstandings come from. Which teachers do you want on the list?
No teachers, we both will talk and we will just discuss as a future agenda that what should be the ideal, I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, ideal ratio.
That has already been approved by the board, so we could bring those recommendations back if that's what you are asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for only Red Creek because I do not know the number of teachers in middle school, high school.
Is that information you'd like?
Oh, of course I would like to see that.
And which teachers would you like to know? Do you want to know just the classroom core area teachers? Do you want to know special ed teachers? Do you want to know interventionists? Who do you want to know?
All regular teachers in middle school.
So we approve a staffing plan, Jill, is that February when we do that as part of the budget development?
In January, we do our
section
enrollment
size.
seat size, yeah.
So that's already a standing,
Yeah, because when I read that 64 teachers in Red Creek, I was like, you understand law of diminishing return. Oh, no wonder we are doing bad. So, you teach finance, right, in UW La Crosse?
no, I teach operations.
You teach operation. So this is my major, economics, law of diminishing return, and all other laws. So, I think so future agenda, we could at least have a discussion. What is ideal ratio between teacher and student? Just to discuss. I don't know what is ideal ratio and is teacher student in our Wisconsin.
Since it's already coming up on the core agenda, can we just delay that until January then? Because we will be discussing that, right? Is that what you?
We definitely will be discussing it in January.
Yeah, I would like to discuss in a new meeting too, because not every day, every hour count for a student. Why? This is how we say per credit hour, that every hour count. If the service is not provided for those hours, they will be behind. So therefore, this is a future agenda I am requesting to have a discussion what is ideal
So we're not gonna-
ratio for teacher and students.
We're not, so you understand our budget is spoken for this year, right? So we're not gonna hire any teachers mid-year. I mean, also, we're outside of the hiring.
You can take away my salary, it's all right. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. It is not that much.
Right. So again, our budget is spent, right?
Yeah.
So we've already talked about that, right? So we're not able to hire, we're gonna have a very difficult time. If we have a teacher leave mid-year, right, we're gonna have a very, very difficult time replacing that teacher. So adding staff, especially in any sizable number at this time of year is not, it's difficult at best. So I think it would be a better use of the board's time to discuss this in January when we're making those decisions for next year after we have finalized the budget, all that stuff. Because it's part of the budget cycle every year that we look at the cost of healthcare and number of staff and all that kind of stuff. And it all comes together in a comprehensive budget. And that January meeting, when we talk about that, our staffing plan, that's one of the slides we have up there is what the student-teacher ratio is on a by-grade basis across the entire district, rather than picking out piecemeal one school at a time. So is that?
Yeah, no, that is a good answer. So we can wait for until January, right?
Because
So
we cannot change it right now. It has been
Because
set.
of money.
Money is gone. I mean, money is spent. We can't change it right now.
But can we, board member, write a letter to a governor or big
We're
guns?
going beyond the conversation is just about
Yep, you're right.
future agenda items, and now we're discussing the content of what you want to discuss. And I think we need to just make a decision. We're going to put it on the agenda. It's gonna be on the agenda in January. We're not to discuss it in public because it hasn't been noticed yet. So it's on the agenda for January.
Yes, that is good enough,
Okay.
but not the next meeting.
No.
Correct, right. All right, any other future items? Okay, then, let me get the note out here. I move to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subpara 1, subpara F, and subpara G, for the purposes of considering actions which may negatively impact reputation of the individual if discussed in open session and the written legal advice of counsel. And this is a roll call vote. Marty?
Mary Jo Rosmanowski?
Yes.
Mary Jo Radcliffe?
Yes.
Nick Helsted?
Yes.
Tom Epps?
Yes.
Victor Carmen?
Yes.
Matt Simonson? Yes. And Brad Dobbs?
Yes. We are in closed session. We will take a brief recess to allow everyone to leave.